welcome to NTD Good Morning.
Here are today's top stories. Extreme heat will affect more than 100 million people nationwide, and forecasters say there's no relief for at least a few days.
The U.S. and the EU strike a trade deal after months of negotiations, and today the Trump administration back at the table holding key talks with two more countries ahead of the trade deadlines early next month.
Tense scenes as panicked passengers escape a Denver airport plane as flames and smoke billow from below.
And with lawmakers out of Washington, D.C. and back in their home districts, Republicans make a focus of selling their One Big Beautiful Bill Act, starting in Vegas.
Can the brain be rewired to overcome mental health issues? In Vital Signs preview, Dr. William J. Walsh lays out his findings on nutrient therapy.
Canada's biggest waterfront fireworks show was back for its 33rd year, featuring a snowbirds flyover, a 400 drone pre-show, and music synced pyrotechnics in front of 300,000 spectators. We take you to English Bay for the highlights.
This is NTD Good Morning, live from our global headquarters in New York City. Here are Stephanie Cox and Carrie Dunst.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good to have you with us today, this Monday, July 28th, on NTD Good Morning. Today's top news: more than 130 million people across the U.S. are under alerts for dangerous, widespread heat.
Yeah, some of the areas are facing potentially life-threatening conditions into midweek.
Tampa, Florida broke a historic record yesterday, hitting 100 degrees for the first time since reliable records began 135 years ago. The city remains under a level 4 out of 4 extreme heat risk, with heat indexes expected to exceed 110 degrees through Saturday. That's how hot it will feel when air temperature and humidity are combined.
And looking ahead, a dangerous heat wave set to impact much of the eastern U.S. seaboard starting today. Heat advisories will be in effect from Boston to New York City, with heat indexes climbing as high as 105 degrees.
Oh my. The extreme heat will stretch through Wednesday, bringing actual temperatures in the upper 90s to low 100s to cities like St. Louis, Memphis, Charlotte, and Tampa. Factoring in tropical moisture, it could actually feel even closer to 115 degrees in parts of the southeast. The area will be under a level 4 extreme heat risk through midweek as well.
Meanwhile, dangerous storms are forecast across the northern plains, with tornadoes possible in parts of South Dakota and Minnesota.
In other news, terrorism charges could be filed against a man accused of a violent Walmart attack.
Authorities say a man entered a Walmart in Michigan on Saturday and randomly stabbed 11 shoppers before he was being detained by several bystanders in the parking lot.
During the incident, 11 individuals were injured by the suspect. The weapon used was a folding knife with a 3.5-inch cutting blade. Aid was immediately provided to the victims by responding law enforcement, citizens, and other emergency responders.
The suspect's name is Bradford Gill of Afton. No motive is currently known. He's expected to be charged with 1 count of terrorism and 11 counts of assault with intent to murder.
The suspect had prior assault incidents as well as controlled substance violations. The victims included both men and women ranging in age from 29 to 84. One was an employee of the Walmart. The stabbings began at the checkout counter inside the store, and then they continued into the parking lot. Witness video shows bystanders confronting the suspect in the parking lot.
Authorities praised the quick response from law enforcement officers as well as the bystanders, who, of course, intervened and detained Gill in the parking lot. The suspect was taken into custody by police shortly after that, and we will certainly be keeping you updated on that. Really, our thoughts are with all of those folks who were harmed in that incident. Now to trade. Today, the Trump administration is holding talks with two countries ahead of those trade deadlines, which are early next month.
Yeah, really Friday,
really
right? August
soon.
1st. Yeah. President Trump meeting with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer in Scotland.
The White House says they'll refine their trade deal outline, which they signed last month.
And Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is in Sweden for trade talks with Chinese officials today. The U.S. and China have an outline for an agreement that The deal would follow earlier agreements on export controls as well as rare earth minerals, and a goal of finalizing a deal by August 12th.
Meanwhile, President Trump is also opening a golf course in Scotland tomorrow, which is dedicated to his mother. Now, after months of negotiations, the U.S. and the European Union have struck a deal.
Yeah, the agreement comes just days before the increased U.S. tariffs were set to go into effect on Friday. Here are those details.
In an announcement from his golf resort in Scotland, President Trump declared the end of a transatlantic tariff standoff.
So we have good news. We've reached a deal. It's a good deal for everybody. This is probably the biggest deal ever reached in any capacity, trade or beyond trade.
It is.
The agreement imposes a 15% tariff on most EU goods, down from Trump's earlier proposal of 30%, and it sets up major European investment in the United States. Under the deal, the EU has committed to purchase $750 billion in American energy and invest $600 billion more in the U.S. economy. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen spoke alongside Trump on the significance of the agreement.
We have a trade deal between the two largest economies in the world. And it's a big deal, it's a huge deal. It will bring stability, it will bring predictability. That's very important for our businesses on both sides of the Atlantic.
Trump emphasized that the deal would open up European markets to U.S. companies, especially automakers and farmers, sectors he says were effectively shut out.
I think maybe cars would be the one that would go the biggest, and the second would be agriculture, the farmers.
But not everything made it into the deal. The U.S. will keep in place a 50% tariff on steel and aluminum, and the deal leaves many questions open, including tariff rates on hard liquor, a contentious topic for both parties. The deal narrowly avoided an escalation that could have seen EU and U.S. tariffs spike dramatically next week, but officials on both sides caution that more negotiations lie ahead.
We were very clear that there were tariffs that could not be lowered. So that was clear from the very beginning, and therefore we maintain them. And this shows that we have to go in depth with other topics within the framework that I've described to sort out really the details in the next days and weeks.
European Union countries are now considering whether to approve the framework that Trump and von der Leyen unveiled yesterday.
Joining us now to discuss the U.S.-EU trade deal and President Trump's current trip to Scotland are Mike Leyen. He's NTD's news contributor as well as the host of the podcast Can We Please Talk? And public policy analyst Michael Busler, who's a professor of finance at Stockton University. Gentlemen, happy Monday morning. Michael Busler, let's switch things up a little bit and start with you to get your view on the economics of the deal. Can you share your initial reactions?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. It's my pleasure to be here. This is a huge deal. Last year, the U.S. bought over $600 billion worth of goods from the European Union, which is good, but we only sold a little under $400 billion worth of goods to them, mostly because they had higher tariffs and some quotas and some additional regulations on American products. This deal essentially removes all of that. So we'll have the reciprocal tariffs. What was a sticking point with this, as I mentioned in the program before, is that some countries want some of their industries protected. And as we saw in the last segment, they reached a deal to be able to protect some of the European goods and some of the U.S. goods. The U.S. Wants goods that are vital to national security: steel, aluminum, copper, medical supplies. They want high tariffs on those goods because they want to bring manufacturing back to the U.S. What it really does is open up European markets to American producers. I believe particularly who will do well in this is the agricultural industry. The U.S. is very good at producing food. We produce it very efficiently, and we've been blocked from selling it to many countries in Europe and other parts of the world. This opens that up. One last point, there'll be no tariffs on aircraft, which means that Boeing is free to sell their planes in Europe without any tariff, and the European Union can sell their Airbuses in the U.S. without any tariffs. So this is a great first step. They'll work out the details in the coming days.
Yeah, certainly a historic step forward. Mike Leyen, in the lead up to the negotiation, Trump was saying to the press that he wasn't happy about several sticking points. And von der Leyen had expressed that there's probably only a 50-50 chance that they would come away with the deal, yet they were able to get it done. So I'm curious what you think changed in the, if you were a fly on the wall, what was going on? What's Trump's relationship like with von der Leyen?
Yeah, it's a good question. Good morning, first and foremost, to everybody. And I'm glad you started with Michael Bustler, because I did want the economic breakdown first before we get to the political breakdown of it, right? Look, Carrie, we've talked about this a bunch on previous segments that we've done together with Michael Bustler. It's always been a negotiating ploy. It's always been a strategy. If you look at it just at that high level, if you take just that in isolation and you say he's using this as a blanket negotiation, it's going to be 30%. It's not 30%, right? It got down to 15%, and we can negotiate from there. So I think when you look at it like that, I think he looks at these relationships in the dollar signs, right? And I think that's what's come away from this framework. Right now, they will be taken out to the other countries that are part of the European Commission, and hopefully everything gets agreed upon. But I want to piggyback on something that Ursula did say in the package that rolled before we came on, which was this provides stability, right? And reliability. That's the biggest thing with tariffs. It's the uncertainty. It's what businesses and small business owners will always go back to and say, I just don't know if I'm going to have to spend more to import something. I don't know if I'm going to have the operating budget to make more hires. I don't know if I'm going to have that extra marketing budget to do XYZ that could potentially grow my business. And I think when you get a trade deal and you get the framework agreed upon, now everybody has the number that they know. Now your price point analysis changes. Everything involved in the business, now you have a set number. So now you can work off of that. You can adapt, and you can either grow your business or figure out other ways to grow your business, whether it be this market, that market, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's the biggest thing and my biggest takeaway with all of this. There's no way to spin it like Michael Bustler said. Like, it is a good deal. This is one of our largest trading partners with respect to how many countries are part of the European Trade Commission. So like, this is a huge deal for the president, and now everybody has that number set and businesses can act accordingly.
Yeah, you're remarking, of course, on the stability, the markets like stability. Michael Bustler, in terms of the relationship economically with the EU, it wasn't necessarily import tariffs that were the problem for U.S. manufacturers trying to do business in Europe. It was more the overly burdensome regulatory environment, the protectionist value-added taxes. Those don't change that much, do they?
Well, they are going to try to work something out where they do change. Let me just make one comment about what Mike Leon just said. He brought up the point of uncertainty. Business can deal with whatever conditions are thrown at them as long as they know what the conditions are. The most difficult decisions business has to make is when you're making decisions under complete uncertainty, when you don't know what's going to happen. So bringing the certainty into this, now we know, and it's going to make business much easier to expand into markets. The other point is, as you just mentioned, American manufacturers have been closed out of markets forever. And we make good products that should be sold in a lot of these European markets. Now, they'll negotiate to take off a lot of these regulations that are put on. A lot of these quotas that they had will be eliminated. Now we know exactly what the tariff will be on products. Agricultural goods, I think, will be exempt from some of the tariffs going into Europe, and that will help expand U.S. output. One of the functions of this trade policy, or one of the goals, was supposed to be to open foreign markets to U.S. manufacturers. We've had such a negative balance of trade because our tariffs have been relatively low and other countries' tariffs have been relatively high. So we buy a lot from them and they don't buy much from us, leading to that negative balance of trade. This will help reduce that. We'll continue to buy what we buy from Europe. Maybe it'll go down a little bit because of the tariffs, but what they buy from us will be expanded, and we should eliminate that negative balance of trade. And that was one of the primary goals of this, and Trump negotiated this perfectly. He has techniques that he uses. He always says, I'm going to put on an extremely high tariff, and everybody sort of panics, and then he brings it down to what he really wanted in the first place, and he ends up with a good trade deal. This is good for both the United States, for the U.S., and for the European Union.
And Mike Leon, just as we finish up, we just have a little bit more time left. Let's just like to look forward to the evolving trade relationship with China and the politics related to that.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're speaking of large trade partners, right? I think that was something that Howard Lutnick said, that like August 1st, everyone's going to get hit with this, except, and he didn't mention this by name, but the elephant in the room, he said large trading partners will continue to negotiate, right? And so this is the next one that everyone's going to be eyeing. Look, it's one thing to make a deal with Japan, and it's one thing to make a deal with the UK, and it's one thing to make a deal with the European Union, and the president has touted these victories, but everybody knows that China is our North Star, let's say, for lack of a good term, in terms of the trading partner that we're, trying to defeat, right? As Michael Busler's nodding along, I would think he would nod along with that. So I know that this is going to be one talk that we're all going to be, watching. The tariffs, to Michael Busler's point earlier, was 145% 1 month, 125% 1 month. That causes instability and stuff like that with respect to different businesses. So I think everybody's going to be watching how this plays out, and we're going to see what this actual eventual number gets to. And that's something that everybody has to keep an eye on. But like you said, Carrie, they're also a global superpower, right? And so we know that there's military aspects to this as well with respect to the negotiations. So I'm interested to see how it all plays out over the next couple of months, and we'll see where we get on that front.
Yeah, and Michael Bustler, maybe you could weigh in briefly. I could see you're chomping at the bit there, so please.
Yeah, China knows that they have to make a deal. Trump put those ridiculously high tariffs that will clobber the Chinese economy. Their economy is doing very poorly now. They can't afford to have to lose some of their American business. So they've got to come up with a deal. And it's not just economics. There'll be a lot of politics involved with this, the rare earth minerals, those kind of things. This will end up being very good for the U.S. and for China. It should help their economy, too. They're on the verge of collapse in China. They've really got to make this deal relatively soon.
Really a major turning point in trade, both with the EU and China. So much to discuss. Appreciate your insights this Monday morning. Mike Leon, Michael Bustler, thank you, gentlemen.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Just in this morning, Cambodia and Thailand have agreed to an immediate ceasefire starting at midnight, ending 5 days of their deadliest clashes in over a decade.
Breakthrough came during peace talks in Malaysia, hosted by the chair of ASEAN, who announced the immediate and unconditional truce.
President Trump pressured both sides over the weekend and called for an immediate ceasefire. On Truth Social, he warned he may withhold trade negotiations until the violence stops.
Both Thailand and Cambodia accused the other of starting the fighting last week. The conflict soon escalated to clashes with heavy artillery at multiple locations along their over 500-mile land border.
It's the deadliest conflict, as we said, in more than a decade between the Southeast Asian neighbors. Trump said on Sunday he believed both Thailand and Cambodia wanted to settle their differences. The comment came after Trump told the leaders of both countries that he would not conclude trade deals with them unless they end their fighting. We'll keep you updated there. Still to come, with lawmakers out of D.C. and back in their districts, Republicans make a focus of selling their One Big Beautiful Bill Act, starting in Las Vegas.
And tense scenes as panicked passengers escape a Denver airport plane as flames and smoke billowed from below. We're going to have that and a bunch more. Stay with us.
Is deep-sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3. Eat 2 a day and you'll feel brand new.
This land, our America, built on hard work, determination, and grit. Sometimes the days run long, but hope, it never runs out, even when the food does, for America's veterans, working parents, even kids. Because in every corner of every town, even yours, millions of hardworking neighbors are facing a hunger crisis. Many for the very first time. In this land of plenty, affording food shouldn't require second jobs and third shifts or choosing between your groceries and bills. Today, you can help change that. Call or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, less than 63 cents a day, to help every neighbor get the food they urgently need. Because taking care of each other is what makes America strong. We're Feeding America, not just a name, but an action. Working with over 200 local food banks like the ones in your community, and demand is soaring.
You go to the grocery store, you spend $100, and $100 is a new $20 bill.
Even with 2 full-time jobs, it's hard to make ends meet.
These are tough times, but when we stand together, we become the very best of a strong America. Please call or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org. Just $19 a month can feed a family today, and your first gift can double an impact. Plus, we'll send you this free canvas bag as a reminder of the hope you're delivering.
When it comes down to it, it's about taking care of your family first and the loved ones that you need to provide for.
Because you're not just giving food, you're fueling resilience for people across the nation. You're feeding America. Call or go online today to helpfeedingamerica.org, and your gift can double an impact.
Hi, I'm Smokey Bear, and I made an assistant to help you out, because only you can prevent wildfires.
Hey, Assistant Smokey Bear, call me Papa Bear, because I'm grilling up dinner. Do you get it?
Yes, good job.
So, what should I do with all these coals?
Don't just toss them out. Put them in a metal container because those embers can start a wildfire.
I understand. The stakes are high.
Ha, 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 ha.
See, Smokey thinks I'm funny.
Welcome back to NTD Good Morning. Police say they've found 3 bodies after a plane crash off the coast of Pacific Grove, California. Authorities say the victims were all local residents.
According to officials, the twin-engine plane took off from San Carlos Airport around 10 p.m. Saturday night, and it crashed into the water just 300 yards from shore. Witnesses say they heard the engine revving loudly before a splash echoed across the coast. The National Transportation Safety Board is now investigating what caused this deadly crash.
And our sincere sympathies to the friends and families who are impacted by this terrible loss. Next, heart-pounding moments at Denver International Airport. Passengers were forced to evacuate a smoking American Airlines jet using an emergency slide on Saturday.
It was kind of crazy. Like, people started screaming. They didn't really know what was going on. One kid said, "We're all gonna die." Like, babies were freaking out. Everyone started kind of like shoving and like moving in different directions. Nobody really knew where to go. And then finally, like, the flight attendant said, "Go to the back, go to the back." And so then, of course, everybody else started saying, "Go to the back." So we all start running to the back. And that's when we went down the slide. I mean, honestly, like, you just gotta like appreciate what you're given. And like, I'm so grateful like that it wasn't worse.
Dramatic eyewitness footage shows smoke and flames billowing from below the rear of the plane as panicked passengers run from the aircraft, some with young children in their arms. American Airlines says the plane experienced a mechanical issue on takeoff that involved an aircraft tire. It says all 173 passengers and 6 crew exited the plane safely. The Denver Fire Department says crews extinguished a fire while responding to the incident.
One of the passengers was taken to a hospital with a minor injury. The flight was scheduled to fly from Denver to Miami and started its takeoff around 1:15 p.m. local time before coming to a halt in the middle of the runway. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy wrote on X that it's important for passengers to follow crew instructions and leave their luggage behind during an emergency evacuation.
Arkansas police are searching for a suspect in the deaths of a married couple. Investigators say they were attacked while on a wooded walking trail while with their 2 young daughters. Clinton and Kristen Brink were found dead Saturday at Devil's Den State Park in Washington County in a suspected homicide.
Their daughters 7 and 9 were not hurt and are being cared for by family members. Officials say the suspect was seen driving toward a park exit in a black 4-door sedan with a license plate partly covered by tape. Authorities say the victims had recently moved to Arkansas from another state.
And we'll certainly be keeping you updated on that. Lawmakers will spend the next month out of D.C. and back in their districts. Republicans work to sell their big, beautiful bill to voters and local stakeholders, starting in Las Vegas. NTD's Melina Weiskup reports.
Starting in the purple state of Nevada, Republicans kick off their month-long campaign to sell the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. In a Las Vegas hearing, lawmakers debated the costs and benefits of the new budget and tax changes.
No tax on tips will translate to over $230 million back into the pockets of tipped workers in just the Las Vegas metro area.
From rising housing costs to falling hotel occupancy, from energy projects on pause to an impending health care cliff, the reality in Nevada tells a very different story than the one Republicans are attempting to sell.
Democrats hold nearly all congressional seats in the state. Republicans are hoping that the no tax on tips provision will help give them an upper hand in the midterms. Over the next month, both parties will fan out across the nation to sell their policy work in D.C. to voters back home.
To drive our message and to communicate that we stand for rural hospitals, we stand for people getting health care, we stand for affordable living.
And frankly, they need to cut through the false and misleading claims about the One Big Beautiful Bill from the media and the Democrats. As I mentioned, the more people know, the more they greatly favor the bill that we passed.
The month-long recess comes as lawmakers were in the midst of debate around how and when to publicly release files related to the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking crimes. The Speaker over the weekend defended his move to adjourn Congress before voting on a resolution to release the Epstein files.
And our concern is that the Massey and Khanna discharge petition is reckless in the way that it is drafted and presented. It does not adequately include those protections.
Johnson said he favors getting the files released after retractions are made to protect victims. A House committee has subpoenaed the DOJ to release the files and other high-profile Democrats and Republicans to testify. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio is praising Vice President J.D. Vance as a strong presidential candidate for 2028. On Fox News yesterday, Rubio called Vance one of his closest friends in politics and said he's doing a great job as VP. Rubio downplayed rumors of running in 2028, saying he's focused on serving in President Trump's cabinet, but he didn't rule it out. Trump has named both Rubio and Vance as possible successors, but also hinted the vice president may have the edge in 2028.
Next, an update on the ongoing TikTok sales saga. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick said yesterday that President Trump likes the social media app, but it has to move to U.S. ownership. Lutnick says the president has found it a good way to communicate with young people. He's been saying that for a while. About 170 million Americans use TikTok. Lutnick says allowing China to have an app on so many American phones is just not possible. The Commerce Secretary last week warned that TikTok will have to stop operating in the U.S. if China doesn't approve a deal for its sale. President Trump last month extended the deadline for China-based ByteDance to sell TikTok by September 17th. Still to come, some areas of New York City will go car-free as part of its Summer Streets program.
What the city says is in store next month.
Can the brain be rewired to overcome mental health issues? In a Vital Signs preview, Dr. William J. Walsh lays out his findings on nutrient therapy. Those stories after this break.
We said we'd never give in to a meltdown.
Okay.
And we'd never babysit with a screen. We said we'd never let the toys take over.
Mariella!
Never leave the house looking, well, and never let them out of our sight. Skylar, come here. Cars get hot fast, and kids can be at risk. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock.
That first time seeing my son, I feel like my life did a 180. I was already trying to change my perspective of life and really just be a father figure that I never had. Being present is the most important part. I'm still growing every day. Becoming a better version of myself. To be the better mirror for my son. I mean, he's just growing. He's becoming his own person. Man, at first I saw him dance, bro, he brings the vibes, you know what I'm saying? He brings the party no matter what. He really a definition of like why he loves somebody. And I love him to the death of me.
I was a quarterback at Hardaway High School, college first-round draft pick. On and off the field, we were taught to not show any signs of weakness. During the football season, I would stop eating, but I didn't know I was depressed. I thought that something was wrong with me. For 20-plus years was physical. We didn't have any education behind what mental health was. I started to learn it starts here first. If this is together, I'll be better as a father, as a man, and as a husband. Put the importance on your mental health. I'm not scared to talk about it anymore. The first tool is therapy. The second one is positive self-talk. And then journaling, putting your thoughts on paper. We have to redefine what being a strong man is and heal, love your mind.
Welcome back to NTD Good Morning. I'm Carrie Dunst. If you're just joining us now, here are some of today's top headlines. The Trump administration is holding talks with the UK and China today after it announced a deal with the EU over the weekend. The agreement comes just days before U.S. tariffs were set to spike. President Trump announced the deal from his resort in Scotland, calling it good news for everybody. The deal cuts proposed tariffs in half and brings hundreds of billions in European investment to the U.S. Meanwhile, talks with China resume this week in Stockholm ahead of another tariff deadline. Cambodia and Thailand have agreed to a ceasefire starting at midnight, ending 5 days of their deadliest clashes in over a decade. The breakthrough came during peace talks in Malaysia. President Trump was pressuring both sides over the weekend. On Truth Social, he warned he may withhold trade negotiations until the violence stops. Both Thailand and Cambodia accused the other of starting the fighting last week, and the conflict soon escalated to clashes with heavy artillery at multiple locations along their 500-mile land border. And lawmakers will spend the next month out of D.C. and back in their home districts. Starting in the purple state of Nevada, Republicans kicked off their month-long campaign to sell the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Republicans touted the no tax on tips provision in a Las Vegas field hearing, while the Democrats railed against the changes to Medicaid and renewable energy tax credits. And finally, more than 130 million people are under heat alerts as dangerous temperatures grip much of the country. Tampa hit 100 degrees for the first time in recorded history, with heat indexes expected to top 110 through the week. Meanwhile, severe storms are expected across the northern plains with damaging winds and possible tornadoes. With that, back to you, Steph.
Thanks, Carrie. New York City is going car-free this summer. Well, at least part of it. Under the Summer Streets program, traffic jams will make way for open spaces for walking, biking, and community fun. This year, the program has expanded to all 5 boroughs, with more than 22 miles of vehicle-free roadways. From free fitness classes to family fun runs, the city says the program is not only about fostering a sense of community, but also about making streets more accessible for everyone, opening them up to people who bike and walk instead of drive. The streets will stay open to people and closed to cars from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. every Saturday through August 23rd. Make the most of that. And it's estimated that 1/4 of all American adults suffer from a diagnosable mental disorder in a given year. These can range from schizophrenia to major depression. In this next preview of Vital Signs, host Brendan Fallon interviews Dr. William J. Walsh, who lays out his findings on treating mental disorders, in which he targets nutrient therapy. Take a listen.
I began to wonder, why are so many of these people who are in prison and doing terrible things? Why is it? And I found out really it wasn't their environment, it wasn't trauma early on. Primarily, it was really that they had a genetic problem involving brain chemistry. And I got connected with the great Carl Pfeiffer from Princeton, New Jersey, who is probably the world's leading expert in schizophrenia treatment. And we worked together for quite a while. And he had a lot of schizophrenic and depressed patients, and he sort of taught me his protocols. He had been nominated for a Nobel Prize, which he did not get. He basically taught me so much, and I got interested in behavior, brain function, and eventually I founded a clinic in Naperville, Illinois, that saw 30,000 patients. And so now we've been working with depression, behavior, autism, the full spectrum of mental disorders. And we're learning so much even still. I learned more in the last 2 or 3 years than I did, say, 5 years ago.
What tipped you off? Was it the work of that Dr. Pfeiffer was doing, that someone's biochemistry would be so critical to their mental health and influence things like antisocial behavior and things like that?
Well, part of it was seeing so many terribly troubled people. You mentioned the young boy that was on the TV program. We've seen, my colleagues of mine, more than 10,000 cases of extreme behavior, including more than 800 felons in prison. And I've interviewed and tested people like Charles Manson, Richard Speck, and I've worked with coroners and with severe, cases. Whenever there was, at one point, I was helping with forensics, trying to help understand why people did what they did, and that's how I started. And it sort of grew into focusing on the brain, understanding what really, what genetic predispositions do these people have, and can they be corrected? And the answer is a lot of this is inborn, not bad parenting or lack of love or traumatic experiences. They can aggravate a problem, but the basic tendency is often inborn and involves misbehaving neurotransmitters. We found there are ways to correct that in addition to what drugs are trying to do, medications. We found that we can really help a lot of these people. Depression's a good example. I had a database, one of the world's biggest databases on chemistry for depressive people. And I found that depression is not a single condition. It's an umbrella term that includes 5 completely different disorders with different misbehaving neurotransmitters and requiring a completely different treatment. I presented that at an annual meeting of the American Psychiatric Association a few years ago, and explained to them that no, it's not always serotonin, and you don't just need an antidepressant, and that only fits one of the 5 categories.
What is the main type of depression that you see coming through that's associated with a particular neurotransmitter problem?
Well, there are 5 major types, and they're quite different. Undermethylation is one of the types. People who are undermethylated, and it has to do with undermethylation of their DNA, not necessarily the undermethylation in their body processes. And if you have undermethylated DNA, every gene that expresses a protein, and we got 21,000 genes, every one of them is affected by whether or not it is methylated or not, whether or not the area around there is methylated. And so if you're undermethylated, that means that almost always the person has low serotonin activity and a tendency for high NMDA activity. Now, if they're overmethylated, and these are the people who tend to have extraordinary anxiety, panic attacks, that if they're overmethylated, that means that they have a problem with excessive dopamine levels and excessive norepinephrine. So that's one of the 5. And we now can identify which neurotransmitters are imbalanced, and we have nutrient therapies that using epigenetics that adjust that. And so with the other 4, I gave you 2 of them, overmethylation and undermethylation. There's one that has to do with metal metabolism. 70% of all people who get a diagnosis of depression have extraordinary elevated copper and low zinc levels. This directly affects two of the major neurotransmitters and causes extraordinarily low dopamine levels and extraordinarily high norepinephrine and adrenaline levels.
To see that full interview and others on how to optimize health, go to ept.ms/vital signs. Vital Signs offers general health information not intended as medical diagnosis or advice. Please consult your doctor before undertaking a new health regimen.
Something spectacular is happening in Hawaii.
Yeah, petroglyphs dating back at least half a millennium have resurfaced on a beach in Waianae. Here's what local experts are saying.
There's 26 petroglyphs that we've seen, and most of them are anthropomorphic, human figures, partial, full. Some of them have their arms up, some are down, some of them are opposite, some of them have fingers.
When the petroglyphs were exposed, we believe that it's our ancestors are telling us something about the Aina, because the land is our family.
Of course, petroglyphs are where you see something carved into a rock surface, and this is the first time the entire panel of 26 figures carved into the rock has been visible since they were first spotted 9 years ago. Archaeologists think they're around 500 to 600 years old, but local traditions state that humans have been living here much, much longer.
Archaeologists say the shifting sands and weather patterns have likely caused this temporary exposure. Officials are now considering how to share the petroglyphs with the community while ensuring that they remain protected.
Up ahead, what's the real cost of owning a car today?
A lot, I would imagine. An automotive expert will give us the lay of the land, help keep those running costs reasonable.
The prices are rising. Canada's biggest waterfront fireworks show was back for its 33rd year, featuring a snowbirds flyover, a 400 drone pre-show, and music-synced pyrotechnics in front of 300,000 spectators. We take you to English Bay for the highlights.
£6 prescription glasses from Select Specs are always great value. There are no offer codes or first-time customers only. Anyone can buy them, anytime. And you can upgrade to Select Specs Express for next day delivery. And with deferred payments, you can spread the cost.
See now, pay later with Select Specs £6 specs. Next day delivery and deferred payment options available at selectspecs.com/£6.
Is deep-sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3. Eat 2 a day and you'll feel brand new.
There's a whirlwind of emotion and activity going on in this painting. And there's chaos all around and threat from below. The wolves surrounding her, and they're anything but unmoved. They're moving all the time, and we sense that. But this little girl,
Welcome back to NTD Good Morning. I'm Stephanie Cox. Prices are rising for car owners, and it's not what you think. The costs we're talking about might seem small at first, incidental, or they may even seem hidden. Beyond the initial outlay, your get around town might be guzzling more than fuel. But let's break it down. Joining us this morning is automotive expert Lauren Fix with Car Coach Reports. Good to have you with us this morning, Lauren.
Good morning.
Good morning. How much does it cost on average to run a car in the U.S.?
Well, it depends what you own and, of course, where you live. And there's going to be a lot of variances there, how well you take care of your car. But on average, if you take everything across the country, about $12,800 on average per year to make your vehicle function. And people don't realize that. They're thinking, what are you talking about? I don't pay that much in car payments. But it's all the little incidentals that you don't think of: insurance, depreciation, gas, parking, and all the things that you think, oh, yeah, I didn't calculate that in. But that's the actual cost to you.
Yeah, so worthwhile to lay this all out. What are the main what are the main pieces of the pie here?
There's a lot of pieces of the pie to consider. So if you take your average cost of a car right now, if you were to purchase a new car, somewhere around $1,000 a month. And that's quite a bit. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, it was a couple $100s a month to buy a car. I remember buying my first car, but now you're looking at $1,000 is the average across the entire country for a new car. So people are keeping their used cars. They're on the road longer, typically around 15 years. So previous to the pandemic, the average age of a car on the road was between 10 and 12 years. Now we're looking at 15 years. People are getting smarter about getting the most value out of their vehicles. But when you look at the total cost, you are going to have depreciation. There's nothing you can do about that. 99% of cars on the road do lose value over time. There are some exceptions, such as Ferraris or Porsches, but most people don't own vehicles like that. So rarely are you in a situation at the end of your lease where your vehicle is worth more than the buyout at the end, which is why most people don't buy out their leases if you're looking at a new vehicle. But when you're looking at costs in general, now the cost of gasoline has dropped under the President Trump's term so far. Hopefully it'll drop further, but right now we're looking at around $2,200 a month on average. Obviously more expensive in California and in New York than it might be in the middle of the country or Texas where they're refining it. Insurance, well, that's gone up across the board. We've covered that on our channel. And the reason for insurance costs going up across the board, and you would think, oh, the cost of replacing the car. That might be one of them. But electric vehicles cost more. And when you're in a fender bender in an electric vehicle or a hybrid, typically the insurance company does not want to take the risk of something else happening that you can't see, such as the battery catching fire, which would be very serious. So they're totaling the cars, and then the cars aren't usable. So it costs more because they have to replace that vehicle. Then you've got the fires that were in California, the floods that were on the East Coast, all of that across the country. Even though you're like, I don't live there, I live in Mississippi, I didn't have any problems at all. But the total cost of that insurance company goes up. So your average cost of insurance is around $1,700 right now, which is quite a bit. So I always recommend every 6 months, shop around, because your policy is a 6-month policy. And you can go online without calling all these companies. You can go to an aggregator locally and say, hey, this is my car. I've got a really nice clean driving record. I have a really nice credit score. I don't have young kids driving. Can I save some money? And a lot of times they'll tell you to take a school and that'll lower it as well. And that's just a day of your time, but it's a savings. Maintenance is big. The car care counts is really big on telling people the average cost is around $1,200, but that's increased to $1,500 a year. So what is that? Oil changes, tire rotations, alignments, all the things that we don't think of. So when you're thinking about maintenance on a vehicle, it's really important that you be proactive. And what does that mean? That book in the glove box that most people never look at, there's a service schedule in there. And you have to look at that. And I always say, but underneath all those napkins, most people don't even look at that. But there is a service schedule. And that service schedule will help you save money, because if it says, and this just happened to, I get a lot of emails from people asking me for advice. And one gentleman said, hey, do I have to replace the timing belt on my car? And I said, well, how many miles? He says, 121,000, but it said recommended at 80. I'm like, ooh, that's a problem. And sure enough, a few weeks later, the timing belt failed, and it ended up costing him thousands of dollars rather than hundreds of dollars. So that owner's manual can really save you money.
It sounds like there are actually quite a few steps that people can make, and a lot of people are making. You mentioned perhaps holding on to their cars a little longer. Which of the hidden costs or fees do you think most drivers underestimate?
I think the depreciation. They think when they buy a car and it's used and they're going to keep driving it. And I have a lot of friends that have vehicles over 100,000 miles. And yes, vehicles will do that if you take good care of them. I think when they realize they go to sell it, that's a big shocker to people. And I've had 4 or 5 friends recently say, well, it's time to get a new car. And they take the vehicle to a dealer or try to sell it online and they realize, oh, it's only worth like $2,000, maybe $3,000. And that's a shocker because of the depreciation. It sort of keeps dwindling over time. Like I said, there are some very rare exceptions, but for the most part, this is what's going to be standard across every vehicle. And you're getting your money's worth if you're really wise when you purchase or lease. If you purchase and you keep it for a long period of time, and you really take care of it, you will get the most value out of it. Remember, it's doing a purpose for you. It's getting you more than point A to point B. It's getting you through life. But it's also important to note that if you're leasing and you're thinking about leasing a new vehicle, there's a sweet spot that's between 10,000 and 15,000 miles. If you drive more than that, don't lease. It's going to cost you more in your overage fees. And if you're driving less than 10,000 miles, don't lease because you're leaving money on the table. Why pay for something if you're not going to get your value out of it?
Such great insights right from the center of all of this. Thank you so much, Lauren Fix, coming on this morning.
Thank you.
We're going to go now live to Scotland, where President Trump is meeting with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer.
You know, when you come from a country, you can do things, and I call up the Prime Minister, and all of a sudden, he's able to do things. True also with other presidents and prime ministers. But we've done it, nobody's ever done what we've done. We have 6 different major, if you take a look at Rwanda and the Congo, Republic of the Congo, they've been fighting for 31 years, 8 million people dead. It was going on. Nobody could go to that part of Africa. They were being killed. If to even walk there, you're being killed with machetes. And it was a violent situation. And I was able to, they liked Trump. They wanted to make a trade deal with Trump. They wanted us to take their rare earth. They want to give us their rare earth. And I got to know the leader of the Congo. I got to know both of them indirectly. And I called them. I said, let's end the war. I don't want anything until you end the war. And we ended the war. As you know, the foreign ministers came up 2 weeks ago, and the leaders are going to be coming very shortly to Washington, Rwanda and Congo. I mean, that's another one that we did. So we've done a lot. It's an honor to do it. It's not hard for me to do it. And I use, not in all cases, but I use a combination of knowing them a little bit, or in some cases knowing them a lot. I know, you know, the leaders of Pakistan and India, I know them very well. And, you know, they're in the midst of a trade deal, and yet they're talking about nuclear weapons. I say, this is crazy. So I said, I'm not doing a trade deal with you guys. And they want the trade deal. They need it. I'm not doing a trade deal with you if you're going to have war. And that's a war that spreads to other countries. You'll get nuclear dust. We'll all get nuclear dust. When they start using nuclear weapons, that stuff blows all over the place and really bad things happen. So maybe we're being a little selfish when we want to save wars too. But we stopped a lot of wars, and it's a great honor to have done it. Thank you all very much. We're going to be talking inside very much about Gaza and the humanitarian aspects of Gaza. Yeah.
Mr. President, what about Russia and Ukraine? You're talking about ceasefires for solutions.
I would have said 5 times we would have had a deal. I've spoken to President Putin a lot. I got along with him very well. But 5 times, and every time 4 times maybe, but we've had discussions. You and I have had discussions. Yeah. We thought we had that settled numerous times. And then President Putin goes out and starts launching rockets into some city like Kiev and kills a lot of people in a nursing home or whatever. You have bodies lying all over the street. And I say, that's not the way to do it. So we'll see what happens with that. I'm very disappointed. I'm disappointed in President Putin. Very disappointed in him. So we're going to have to look, and I'm going to reduce that 50 days that I gave him to a lesser number because I think I already know the answer what's going to happen. Okay? Thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you later.
And we saw there President Trump meeting with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, as well as Nicola Sturgeon. She's the Scottish First Minister, and they're talking about the various wars that are taking place, the trade deal between the UK and the US, and other things that they're looking to accomplish in their meetings. So we'll be reporting at the aftermath of those meetings, looking at that closely. But right now, we're going to head to a short break. Stay with us. We have much more in the next hour.
Focus on beauty, showcase nature, share kindness, feel brightness. 2025, the 5th NTD International Photography Competition. Capture the beautiful moments in your eyes. Your works will be showcased in galleries and on multiple online platforms, appreciated and collected. Please visit photo.ntdtv.com.
You are not hidden. There's never been a moment you were forgotten. You are not hopeless. Though you have been broken, your innocence stolen. I hear your SOS, your SOS. I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true, I will rescue you.
On streets across America, young people are homeless, abused, in danger. Covenant House is helping young people with nowhere else to turn. But the need is overwhelming. Please call or go online now with your gift of $19 a month. You'll help provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love to more than 2,000 young people who sleep at a Covenant House every night. Homeless young people are afraid and alone. Your monthly donation right now will show them they are loved and safe.
I have no words to express how Covenant House changed my life.
Call or go online now and give just $19 a month. We'll send you this comforting blanket as a reminder of the difference you're making in a young person's life. Call or go online now to safeplacetosleep.org.
Hi, I'm Smokey Bear, and I made an assistant to help you out, because only you can prevent wildfires.
Hey, Assistant Smokey Bear, call me Papa Bear, because I'm grilling up dinner. Do you get it?
Yes, good job.
So, what should I do with all these coals?
Don't just toss them out. Put them in a metal container because those embers can start a wildfire.
I understand. The stakes are high.
Ha, 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 ha.
See, Smokey thinks I'm funny.
Welcome to NTD Good Morning.
Here are today's top stories. Extreme heat will affect more than 100 million people nationwide. Forecasters say there's no relief for at least a few days.
The U.S. and the EU strike a trade deal after months of negotiations, and today the Trump administration is back at the table, holding key talks with two more countries ahead of trade deadlines early next month.
Leaders of Cambodia and Thailand agreed to a ceasefire this morning after a fierce border conflict.
Tense scenes as panicked passengers escape a Denver airport plane as flames and smoke billow from below.
With lawmakers out of Washington, D.C. and back in their districts, Republicans make a focus of selling their One Big Beautiful Bill Act starting in Las Vegas.
Eddie's Sweet Shop is celebrating its 100th anniversary this year. A look at this staple in the local community, serving up refreshing frozen treats to help residents beat the summer heat.
This is NTD Good Morning. Live from our global headquarters in New York City, here are Stephanie Cox and Carrie Dunst.
Thank you for kicking off your weekend with us, or your week, with us.
Yeah, for sure.
I wish it was the weekend, but here we go. It's Monday, right?
It sure is. This is NTD Good Morning, and we are glad to have you here with us. More than 130 million people across the U.S. are currently under alerts for dangerous, widespread heat.
Yeah, it's getting hot out there. Some areas are facing potentially life-threatening conditions all the way into the midweek.
Tampa, Florida broke a historic record yesterday, hitting 100 degrees for the first time since reliable records began 135 years ago. The city remains under a level 4 out of 4 extreme heat risk, with heat indices expected to exceed 110 degrees through Saturday. Now, that's how hot it will feel when air temperature and humidity are combined.
Looking ahead, a dangerous heat wave set to impact much of the eastern U.S. starting today. Heat advisories will be in effect from Boston to New York City, with the heat indexes climbing as high as 105 degrees.
The extreme heat will stretch through Wednesday, bringing actual temperatures into the upper 90s to low 100s to cities like St. Louis, Memphis, Charlotte, and Tampa. Factoring in tropical moisture, it could feel more like 115 degrees in parts of the southeast, and the area will be under a level 4 extreme heat risk through midweek.
Meanwhile, dangerous storms are threatening across the northern plains, with tornadoes possible in parts of South Dakota as well as Minnesota.
Terrorism charges could be filed against a man accused of a violent Walmart attack.
Authorities say a man entered a Walmart in Michigan on Saturday and then randomly started stabbing 11 shoppers before being detained by several bystanders as it spilled out into the parking lot.
During the incident, 11 individuals were injured by the suspect. The weapon used was a folding knife with a 3.5-inch cutting blade. Aid was immediately provided to the victims by responding law enforcement, citizens, and other emergency responders.
The suspect's name is Bradford Gill of Afton. No motive is currently known. He's expected to be charged with 1 count of terrorism and 11 counts of assault with intent to murder.
The suspect had prior assault incidents as well as controlled substance violations. The victims included men and women ranging in age from 29 all the way to 84 years old. One was a Walmart employee. The stabbings began at the checkout counter inside the store and then continued into the parking lot. Witness video shows bystanders confronting the suspect in the parking lot.
Gosh, authorities praised the quick response from law enforcement officers as well as the bystanders who intervened and detained Gill in the parking lot. The suspect was taken into custody by police shortly afterwards, and we are certainly wishing strength and peace to all those who are affected by this terrible incident. Just this morning, Cambodia and Thailand have agreed to an immediate ceasefire starting at midnight, ending 5 days of their deadliest clashes in over a decade.
Yeah, this breakthrough came during peace talks held in Malaysia and hosted by the chair of ASEAN, who announced the immediate and unconditional truce.
President Trump pressured both sides over the weekend and called for an immediate ceasefire. On Truth Social, he warned he may withhold trade negotiations until the violence stopped.
Both Thailand and Cambodia are accusing each other of starting this fighting, which began last week. The conflict soon escalated to clashes with heavy artillery at multiple locations along their very long 500-mile land border.
It's the deadliest conflict in more than a decade between the Southeast Asian nations. Trump said on Sunday he believed both Thailand and Cambodia wanted to settle their differences. The comment came after the president told the leaders of both countries that he would not conclude those trade deals with them unless they ended their fighting. And today, the Trump administration is holding talks with 2 countries ahead of trade deadlines early next month.
President Trump meeting with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer in Scotland. The White House says they'll refine a trade deal outline that they signed last month.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is in Sweden for trade talks with Chinese officials today. The U.S. and China have an outline for an agreement. That deal would follow earlier agreements on export controls and rare earth minerals and a goal of finalizing a deal by August 12th.
Meanwhile, President Trump is also opening a golf course in Scotland tomorrow, and he's dedicating it to his mother, where she was born in Scotland.
After months of negotiations, the U.S. and the European Union have struck a deal.
The agreement comes just days before increased U.S. tariffs were set to go into effect on Friday. Here are those details.
In an announcement from his golf resort in Scotland, President Trump declared the end of a transatlantic tariff standoff.
So we have good news. We've reached a deal. It's a good deal for everybody. This is probably the biggest deal ever reached in any capacity, trade or beyond trade.
It is.
The agreement imposes a 15% tariff on most EU goods, down from Trump's earlier proposal of 30%, and it sets up major European investment in the United States. Under the deal, the EU has committed to purchase $750 billion in American energy and invest $600 billion more in the U.S. economy. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen spoke alongside Trump on the significance of the agreement.
We have a trade deal between the two largest economies in the world. And it's a big deal, it's a huge deal. It will bring stability, it will bring predictability. That's very important for our businesses on both sides of the Atlantic.
Trump emphasized that the deal would open up European markets to U.S. companies, especially automakers and farmers, sectors he says were effectively shut out.
I think maybe cars would be the one that would go the biggest, and the second would be agriculture, the farmers.
But not everything made it into the deal. The U.S. will keep in place a 50% tariff on steel and aluminum, and the deal leaves many questions open, including tariff rates on hard liquor, a contentious topic for both parties. The deal narrowly avoided an escalation that could have seen EU and U.S. tariffs spike dramatically next week, but officials on both sides cautioned that more negotiations lie ahead.
We were very clear that there were tariffs that could not be lowered. So that was clear from the very beginning, and therefore we maintain them. And this shows that we have to go in depth with other topics within the framework that I've described to sort out really the details in the next days and weeks.
European Union countries are now considering whether to approve the framework that Trump and von der Leyen unveiled yesterday.
To discuss the U.S. and EU trade deal, as well as the upcoming China trade talks, I spoke with NTD News contributor Mike Leon and Michael Busler, a professor of finance at Stockton University. I asked them for their reactions to the deal. Let's have a look.
This is a huge deal. Last year, the U.S. bought over $600 billion worth of goods from the European Union, which is good, but we only sold a little under $400 billion worth of goods to them, mostly because they had higher tariffs and some quotas and some additional regulations on American products. This deal essentially removes all of that. So we'll have the reciprocal tariffs. What was a sticking point with this, as I mentioned in the program before, is that some countries want some of their industries protected. And as we saw in the last segment, they reached a deal to be able to protect some of the European goods and some of the U.S. goods. The U.S. Wants goods that are vital to national security: steel, aluminum, copper, medical supplies. They want high tariffs on those goods because they want to bring manufacturing back to the U.S. What it really does is open up European markets to American producers. I believe particularly who will do well in this is the agricultural industry. The U.S. is very good at producing food. We produce it very efficiently, and we've been blocked from selling it to many countries in Europe and other parts of the world. This opens that up. One last point, there'll be no tariffs on aircraft, which means that Boeing is free to sell their planes in Europe without any tariff, and the European Union can sell their Airbuses in the U.S. without any tariffs. So this is a great first step. They'll work out the details in the coming days.
And Mike Leon, just as we finish up, we just have a little bit more time left. Let's just like to look forward to the evolving trade relationship with China and the politics related to that.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're speaking of large trade partners, right? I think that was something that Howard Lutnick said, that like August 1st, everyone's going to get hit with this, except, and he didn't mention this by name, but the elephant in the room, he said large trading partners will continue to negotiate, right? And so this is the next one that everyone's going to be eyeing. Look, it's one thing to make a deal with Japan, and it's one thing to make a deal with the UK, and it's one thing to make a deal with the European Union, and the president has touted these victories. But everybody knows that China is our North Star, let's say, for lack of a good term, in terms of the trading partner that we're trying to defeat, right? As Michael Busler's nodding along, I would think he would nod along with that. So I know that this is going to be one talk that we're all going to be watching. The tariffs, to Michael Busler's point earlier, was 145% 1 month, 125% 1 month. That causes instability and stuff like that with respect to different businesses. So I think everybody's going to be watching how this plays out, and we're going to see what this actual eventual number gets to. And that's something that everybody has to keep an eye on. But like you said, Carrie, they're also a global superpower, right? And so we know that there's military aspects to this as well with respect to the negotiations. So I'm interested to see how it all plays out over the next couple of months, and we'll see where we get on that front.
Yeah, and Michael Bustler, maybe you could weigh in briefly. I could see you're chomping at the bit there, so please.
Yeah, China knows that they have to make a deal. Trump put those ridiculously high tariffs that will clobber the Chinese economy. Their economy is doing very poorly now. They can't afford to have to lose some of their American business. So they've got to come up with a deal. And it's not just economics. There'll be a lot of politics involved with this, the rare earth minerals, those kind of things. This will end up being very good for the U.S. and for China. It should help their economy, too. They're on the verge of collapse in China. They've really got to make this deal relatively soon.
Really a major turning point in trade, both with the EU and China. So much to discuss. Appreciate your insights this Monday morning. Mike Leon, Michael Bustler, thank you, gentlemen.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
And we now move to Trump's domestic policy. The Education Department froze nearly $7 billion in funding at the beginning of July to allow for the Office of Management and Budget to review the allocations. They've now announced that they are reinstating $5 billion and releasing $1 billion of that funds this week for after-school and summer programs. Joining us to discuss is Aaron Boxer. He's a former special education teacher and the present CEO of Diversified Education Services. It's good to see you this morning, Aaron. What are your initial reactions to first freezing the funds in early July and now this sort of partial trickling release of the funds?
Good morning. Thanks for having me. Yes, the Trump administration wanted to send a message. Federal funds should support academics, not activism. Some districts were funneling money into what he called radical DEI programs or ideologically driven content that had nothing to do with reading, math, or science. So this freeze wasn't random. It was a pressure tactic to bring education back to neutral ground. So it wasn't about budget cuts as it was more about cutting out the politics from public education.
Yeah, and so the Trump administration has really focused on two things that they really want to see improve within the education sector. You alluded to the first one being sort of the activism inside of the curriculum, and the second thing just being the complete underperformance of U.S. public education relative to the westernized world. So do you think this approach of reviewing the funds and threatening to remove the funds is having the intended effect of improving both of those things?
Yes. Now, there is a question about the legality of it. And there is an Impoundment Control Act of 1974 that said that the president cannot unilaterally withhold funds that Congress has already appropriated without some formal notification to Congress. And Trump's team is avoiding triggering that law by framing the freeze as a temporary programmatic review. So what they're doing is they're just trying to make it so districts will use the money for things like they've been using for undocumented student scholarships and progressive agendas with DEI or LGBTQ. What they're doing is they're sending a message that if you don't adhere to the law, we are going to withhold funds. So this is a shot across the bow. We're going to see how it plays out. At this point, we don't really know.
Yeah, in terms of the tactics, requesting that the funds be unfrozen was supported by Republicans as well, bipartisan, a lot of emphasis coming out of West Virginia. You have hands-on experience both as a teacher and now as an education administrator. What are your views on how they went through this several-week kind of review, an audit, by the Office of Management and Budget?
It definitely raises some legal concerns. There's a company called Democracy Forward. They're a legal advocacy group, and they filed lawsuits on behalf of some of the affected school districts, arguing that this was a de facto impoundment. And the pressure did work. The administration began releasing the funds. They started with, as you pointed out at the beginning, that $1.3 billion goes to these summer programs, and the rest they'll receive by late July. The freeze was temporary, but the precedent is permanent. If you break the rules, you lose the funding. We might not like the tactics that they're using, but one thing we know about the Trump administration is they will follow up. They will not forget.
Yeah, very interesting in how he negotiates. We just looked at how he's negotiating the tariffs internationally, and this is sort of an internal negotiation as he looks to chart a new course with education. He believes it's part of his mandate as being elected. Now, with the school year, it's back to school is really just a couple of weeks away. So what do you expect from the Trump administration in terms of what Secretary McMahon is doing on Trump's behalf with both primary and higher education? What differences might parents, teachers, and students notice as they enter the school year?
The focus on the parents, they're the ones who are kind of caught in the middle here between the states and the districts and the Trump administration. And listen, parents just want stability. They want their schools funded, their kids focused on real learning, not caught in this tug of war over politics. But this freeze pulled back the curtain. And now we're asking the right questions. Where's the money going? What are schools actually teaching? Are students getting results? To that latter question, the answer is no when we have 1 out of 4 kids at the 8th grade level who's not proficient in reading or math. So whatever they've been doing in the past, the definition of insanity of doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, well, it hasn't been working. And this move is something new, putting pressure on the states to do the right thing. So if this sparks more oversight and a return to academic fundamentals, I believe it's a win, not just for certain states or red states. It's good for everyone, and it's got to be good for kids. So this was a wake-up call for districts and a win for parents who just want schools to teach and not preach.
Well, certainly a break in tactics, some questioning the legality of it as you observe, but certainly changes do seem like they are afoot. Always appreciate you sharing your education expertise with us, Aaron Boxer. Have a great week.
You too, Carrie. Thanks.
And up ahead, with lawmakers out of D.C. and back in their districts, Republicans make a focus of selling their One Big Beautiful Bill Act, starting in Las Vegas.
And there were tense scenes as panicked passengers escaped a Denver airport plane. Flames and smoke billowed from underneath the plane. We're going to have that story and a whole bunch more. Stay with us.
I trod on my glasses yesterday, and I had to pay up front for a new pair that I can't even pick up for another 10 days. So I looked for another way, and I found Select Specs. I ordered online. My new glasses just arrived this morning, and I can pay over the next few weeks. This is the way to buy glasses.
See now, pay later with Select Specs. Next day delivery and deferred payment options only at selectspecs.com.
Is deep-sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritang Green Vegetable Omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals, especially vitamins A, D, E, calcium, and iron. With natural processing and no harmful chemical additives, it has more than 90% concentration of omegas 3, 6, 7, and 9. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritang Omega-3 does not smell of fish and contains no pollutants, so both adults and children can safely and easily consume it over a long period of time. Puritang Green Vegetable Omega-3. Greener, healthier, and more effective. Visit puritang.com to learn more.
There's a whirlwind of emotion and activity going on in this painting. And there's chaos all around and threat from below. The wolves surrounding her, and they're anything but unmoved. They're moving all the time, and we sense that. But this little girl remains unmoved.
Welcome back to NTD Good Morning. Police say they found 3 bodies after a plane crash off the coast of Pacific Grove, California. Authorities say the victims were all local residents.
According to the officials, the twin-engine plane took off from San Carlos Airport around 10 p.m. Saturday night, and it crashed into the water just 300 yards from shore. Witnesses say they heard the engine revving loudly before a splash echoed across the coast. The National Transportation Safety Board is now investigating what caused the deadly crash.
In heart-pounding moments at Denver International Airport, passengers were forced to evacuate a smoking American Airlines jet using an emergency slide on Saturday.
It was kind of crazy. Like, people started screaming. They didn't really know what was going on. One kid said, "We're all gonna die." Like, babies were freaking out. Everyone started kind of like shoving and like moving in different directions. Nobody really knew where to go. And then finally, like, the flight attendant said, "Go to the back, go to the back." And so then, of course, everybody else started saying, "Go to the back." So we all started running to the back. And that's when we went down the slide. I mean, honestly, like, you just gotta like appreciate what you're given. And like, I'm so grateful like that it wasn't worse.
Dramatic eyewitness footage shows smoke and flames billowing from below the rear of the plane as panicked passengers run from the aircraft, some with young children in their arms. American Airlines says the plane experienced a mechanical issue on takeoff roll that involved an aircraft tire. It says all 173 passengers and 6 crew exited the plane safely. The Denver Fire Department says crews extinguished a fire while responding to the incident.
One of the passengers was taken to a hospital with a minor injury. The flight scheduled to fly from Denver to Miami and started its takeoff around 1:15 p.m. local time before coming to a halt in the middle of the runway. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy wrote on X that in these situations, it's important for passengers to follow crew instructions and leave their luggage behind during an emergency evacuation.
Arkansas police are searching for a suspect in the deaths of a married couple. Investigators say they were attacked while on a wooded walking trail while with their 2 young daughters. Clinton and Kristen Brink were found dead Saturday at Devil's Den State Park in Washington County in a suspected homicide.
Their daughters, 7 and 9, were not hurt and are being cared for by family members. Officials say the suspect was seen driving toward a park exit in a black 4-door sedan with a license plate that was partially covered by tape. Authorities say the victims had recently moved to Arkansas from another state.
Lawmakers will spend the next month out of D.C. and back in their districts. Republicans work to sell their big, beautiful bill in the meantime to voters and local stakeholders, starting in Las Vegas. NTD's Melina Weiskup reports.
Starting in the purple state of Nevada, Republicans kick off their month-long campaign to sell the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. In a Las Vegas hearing, lawmakers debated the costs and benefits of the new budget and tax changes.
No tax on tips, will translate to over $230 million back into the pockets of tipped workers in just the Las Vegas metro area.
From rising housing costs to falling hotel occupancy, from energy projects on pause to an impending healthcare cliff, the reality in Nevada tells a very different story than the one Republicans are attempting to sell.
Democrats hold nearly all congressional seats in the state. Republicans are hoping that the no tax on tips provision will help give them an upper hand in the midterms. Over the next month, both parties will fan out across the nation to sell their policy work in D.C. to voters back home.
To drive our message and to communicate that we stand for rural hospitals, we stand for people getting health care, we stand for affordable living.
And frankly, they need to cut through the false and misleading claims about the one big beautiful bill from the media and the Democrats. As I mentioned, the more people know, the more they greatly favor the bill that we passed.
The month-long recess comes as lawmakers were in the midst of debate around how and when to publicly release files related to the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking crimes. The Speaker over the weekend defended his move to adjourn Congress before voting on a resolution to release the Epstein files.
And our concern is that the Massey and Khanna discharge petition is reckless in the way that it is drafted and presented. It does not adequately include those protections.
Johnson said he favors getting the files released after retractions are made to protect victims. A House committee has subpoenaed the DOJ to release the files and other high-profile Democrats and Republicans to testify. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
Next, an update on the ongoing TikTok sales saga. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick said yesterday that President Trump likes the social media app, but that it has to move to U.S. ownership. Lutnick says the president has found it a good way to communicate with young people. About 170 million Americans use TikTok. Lutnick says allowing China to have an app on so many American phones is just not possible. The Commerce Secretary said last week that TikTok will have to stop operating in the U.S. if China does not approve a deal for its sale. President Trump last month extended the deadline for China-based ByteDance to sell TikTok by September 17th.
Average home insurance policy costs across the country have gone up in the last year, and it's due to a variety of factors. Here's a look at the rising costs and what you can do to try and save some money.
From ravenous wildfires to devastating tornadoes, natural disasters are becoming more frequent and more intense. Last year, there were 27 confirmed weather and climate disasters in the U.S., with losses exceeding $1 billion, according to NOAA. Because of this, many home insurance companies are raising policy rates.
There are more natural disasters happening, and they're affecting more homes.
Holden Lewis with NerdWallet says they recently conducted a survey among homeowners and found 54% said their premiums have gone up in the last 12 months. These rate hikes aren't specific to certain states, it's nationwide.
They end up having to pass along some of those costs to states that might have fewer natural disasters.
State Farm recently raised home insurance rates by an average of 27.2% in Illinois. They say it's because in 2024, for every dollar they collected from policyholders, State Farm paid out $1.26. State Farm said Illinois had the second highest hailstorm damage claims last year, totaling $638 million. Telling CNN in part, accurate risk-based pricing makes sure that insurers like State Farm can pay claims during some of life's toughest moments for policyholders.
Some of the most costly natural disasters are hailstorms.
Inflation and the rising cost of supplies is also contributing to higher premiums. But Lewis says there are things you can do to help lower your rates. Adding roof trusses or upgrading your garage door can help get a better rate. Also installing fire alarms and security systems. And shop around to compare different companies' premiums.
New York City is going car-free this summer. Well, at least for part of it. Under the Summer Streets program, traffic jams will make way for open spaces for walking, biking, and community fun. This year, the program has expanded to all 5 boroughs with more than 22 miles of vehicle-free roadways. From free fitness classes to family fun runs, The city says the program is not only about fostering a sense of community, but also about making streets more accessible for everyone, opening them up to people who bike and walk instead of drive. The streets will stay open to people and closed to cars from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. every Saturday through August 23rd. And still to come, can the brain be rewired to overcome mental health issues? In a Vital Signs preview, Dr. William J. Walsh lays out his findings on nutrient therapy. Stay tuned for that.
During high school, I hung with the wrong crowd and I never graduated.
I helped Santiago in many different ways, like all fathers do, because he always wanted to go to college.
I felt a little embarrassed to come back to school, but eventually, once I came here, I knew that it's for a bigger goal.
He was very dedicated, hardworking. He connected with his teachers, he connected with other students. That was one of the key reasons why he was able to keep forging ahead.
It was amazing to see him graduate. This was one thing that meant so much to him, and of course, it meant so much to us too.
With the help of my father and having my son, that was all the motivation that I needed. That support is everything.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
I am so glad you ladies are here. You each have your own rooms.
Thank you.
Get settled in. I'll call you for dinner. Adopting teen sisters, it's a lot. Girls, you're gonna be late. You want breakfast?
No thanks, we're good.
They're always in their own world.
What'd you get there?
Twice the work. Twice the surprises.
Just try it.
Good. But if you think of it that way, they're also twice as fulfilling.
I think you should ask her yourself.
Is it okay to call you Mom?
Of course you can.
Welcome back to NTD Good Morning. I'm Carrie Dunst. If you're just joining us now, here are some of today's top headlines. The Trump administration is holding talks with the UK and China today after it announced a deal with the EU over the weekend. This new agreement comes just days before the U.S. tariffs were set to spike. President Trump announced the deal from his resort in Scotland, calling it good news for everybody. The deal cuts proposed tariffs in half and brings hundreds of billions in European investment to the U.S. And Cambodia and Thailand have agreed to a ceasefire starting at midnight, ending 5 days of their deadliest clashes in over a decade. The breakthrough came during peace talks in Malaysia. President Trump pressured both sides over the weekend. On Truth Social, he warned he may withhold trade negotiations until the violence stops. Both Thailand and Cambodia accused the other of starting the fighting last week. The conflict soon escalated to clashes with heavy artillery at multiple locations along their 500-mile-long land border. And lawmakers will spend the next month out of D.C. back in their home districts, starting in the purple state of Nevada. Republicans kicked off their month-long campaign to sell the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Republicans touted the no tax on tips provisions in a Las Vegas field hearing, while Democrats railed against the changes to Medicaid and renewable energy tax credits. And more than 130 million Americans under alerts for heat as dangerous temperatures grip much of the country. Tampa hit 100 degrees for the first time in recorded history, with heat indexes expected to top 110 through the week. Meanwhile, severe storms are expected across the northern plains with damaging winds and possible tornadoes. With that, back to you, Steph.
Thanks, Carrie. It's estimated that 1/4 of all American adults suffer from a diagnosable mental disorder in a given year. These can range from schizophrenia to major depression. In this preview of Vital Signs, host Brendan Fallon interviews Dr. William J. Walsh, who lays out his findings on treating mental health disorders, which he targets with nutrient therapy. Take a listen.
I began to wonder, why are so many of these people who are in prison and doing terrible things? Why is it? And I found out really it wasn't their environment. It wasn't trauma early on. Primarily, it was really that they had a genetic problem involving brain chemistry. And I got connected with the great Carl Pfeiffer from Princeton, New Jersey, who is probably the world's leading expert in schizophrenia treatment. And we worked together for quite a while. And he had a lot of schizophrenic and depressed patients, and he sort of taught me his protocols. He had been nominated for a Nobel Prize, which he did not get. He basically taught me so much, and I got interested in behavior, brain function, and eventually I founded a clinic in Naperville, Illinois, that saw 30,000 patients. And so now we've been working with depression, behavior, autism, the full spectrum of mental disorders. And we're learning so much even still. I learned more in the last 2 or 3 years than I did, say, 5 years ago.
What tipped you off? Was it the work of that Dr. Pfeiffer was doing, that someone's biochemistry would be so critical to their mental health and influence things like antisocial behavior and things like that?
Well, part of it was seeing so many terribly troubled people. You mentioned the young boy that was on the TV program. We've seen, my colleagues of mine, more than 10,000 cases of extreme behavior, including more than 800 felons in prison. And I've interviewed and tested people like Charles Manson, Richard Speck, and I've worked with coroners and with severe, cases. Whenever there was, at one point, I was helping with forensics, trying to help understand why people did what they did, and that's how I started. And it sort of grew into focusing on the brain, understanding what genetic predispositions do these people have, and can they be corrected? And the answer is a lot of this is inborn, not bad parenting or lack of love or traumatic experiences. They can aggravate a problem, but the basic tendency is often inborn and involves misbehaving neurotransmitters. We found there are ways to correct that in addition to what drugs are trying to do, medications. We found that we can really help a lot of these people. Depression's a good example. I had a database, one of the world's biggest databases on chemistry for depressive people. And I found that depression is not a single condition. It's an umbrella term that includes 5 completely different disorders with different misbehaving neurotransmitters and requiring a completely different treatment. I presented that at an annual meeting of the American Psychiatric Association a few years ago, and explained to them that no, it's not always serotonin, and you don't just need an antidepressant, and that only fits one of the 5 categories.
What is the main type of depression that you see coming through that's associated with a particular neurotransmitter problem?
Well, there are 5 major types, and they're quite different. Undermethylation is one of the types. People who are undermethylated, and it has to do with undermethylation of their DNA, not necessarily the undermethylation in their body processes. And if you have undermethylated DNA, every gene that expresses a protein, and we got 21,000 genes, every one of them is affected by whether or not it is methylated or not, whether or not the area around there is methylated. And so if you're undermethylated, that means that almost always the person has low serotonin activity and a tendency for high NMDA activity. Now, if they're over-methylated, and these are the people who tend to have extraordinary anxiety, panic attacks, that if they're over-methylated, that means that they have a problem with excessive dopamine levels and excessive norepinephrine. So that's one of the 5. And we now can identify which neurotransmitters are imbalanced, and we have nutrient therapies that using epigenetics that adjust that. And so with the other 4, I gave you 2 of them, over-methylation and under-methylation. There's one that has to do with metal metabolism. 70% of all people who get a diagnosis of depression have extraordinary elevated copper and low zinc levels. This directly affects 2 of the major neurotransmitters and causes extraordinarily low dopamine levels and extraordinarily high norepinephrine and adrenaline levels.
To see that full interview and others on how to optimize health, go to ept.ms/vital signs. Vital Signs offers general health information not intended as medical diagnosis or advice. Please consult your doctor before undertaking a new health regimen.
Something spectacular is happening in Hawaii.
That's right. Petroglyphs, dating back at least half a millennium, have resurfaced on a beach in Waianahi. Here's what local experts are saying.
There's 26 petroglyphs that we've seen, and most of them are anthropomorphic, human figures, partial, full. Some of them have their arms up, some are down, some of them are opposite, some of them have fingers.
When the petroglyphs were exposed, we believe that it's our ancestors are telling us something about the Aina, because the land is our family.
This is the first time the entire panel of 26 figures carved into the rock has been visible since they were first spotted 9 years ago. Archaeologists think they're around 500 to 600 years old, but local traditions state humans have been living here much longer.
And archaeologists say the shifting sands and the weather patterns have likely caused this temporary exposure. Officials are now considering how to share the petroglyphs with the community while ensuring that they also remain protected.
Still to come, Eddie's Sweet Shop is celebrating its 100th anniversary this year. A look at the staple in the local community in New York City, serving up refreshing frozen treats to residents to help beat the summer heat.
And owners and their dogs gather at a beach in England to hit the waves and crown the fastest dog alive on a surfboard. Stay with us for that.
Focus on beauty, showcase nature, share kindness, feel brightness, capture the beautiful moments in your eyes. Your works will be showcased in galleries and on multiple online platforms, appreciated and collected. Please visit photo.ntdtv.com.
You are not hidden. There's never been a moment you were forgotten. You are not hopeless. Though you have been broken, your innocence stolen. I hear your SOS, your SOS. I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true, I will rescue you.
On streets across America, young people are homeless, abused, in danger. Covenant House is helping young people with nowhere else to turn. But the need is overwhelming. Please call or go online now with your gift of $19 a month. You'll help provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love to more than 2,000 young people who sleep at a Covenant House every night. Homeless young people are afraid and alone. Your monthly donation right now will show them they are loved and safe.
I have no words to express how Covenant House changed my life.
Call or go online now and give just $19 a month. We'll send you this comforting blanket as a reminder of the difference you're making in a young person's life. Call or go online now to safeplacetosleep.org.
We said we'd never break the 3-second rule. Never do that. And never become a minivan mom.
Hey, Chris.
As parents, we say never a lot, but never happens. So when you say you'd never leave your child in a hot car, know it can happen. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock.
Welcome back to NTD Good Morning. Eddie's Sweet Shop in New York City has been welcoming visitors since 1925. It's actually the city's oldest ice cream shop. And now the store is marking its 100th anniversary.
That's right. Located in Forest Hills, Queens, residents take the time during the hot summer months to come cool off and enjoy a cool, tasty treat. Let's have a look.
Eddie's Sweet Shop is the oldest ice cream parlor in New York City, serving generations of New Yorkers since 1925. Located in Queens, inside the neighborhood of Forest Hills, the shop has kept its old-school charm, still equipped with its original doors, ceilings, and marble counter.
As soon as you walk through that door, or right before you walk through that door, because that's still the original door, and as you walk through, this is exactly how it was almost 100 years now.
Vito Citrano's family has been running the shop after his father purchased it from the previous owners back in 1968.
My father bought it in 1968, so there were 3 different owners before that. So we started over in 1968, and we kept the tradition going, and that's what we're trying to do till today.
As local residents visit the shop to get some relief from the summer heat, they recall fond memories of visiting the ice cream shop as kids.
Well, I have memories of my dad taking me here as a kid because it was around when he was a child and when my mom was a child. So I have fond memories from when I was little coming here.
Some customers are continuing the tradition, bringing their kids in to taste some of their original flavors.
Well, it's a hot day out and figured we could use something refreshing, but also because this store has been a staple. I remember coming here when I was a little boy, and it's been here forever, and my dad used to take me here, so just want to keep that tradition going and spending quality time with my family, but also coming to a place that's, a staple of Queens.
Eddie's Sweet Shop is open Wednesday through Sunday from 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. and continues to be a staple in the Forest Hills community.
It's a very impressive feat, 100-year anniversary for the oldest ice cream shop in New York City. I myself, being a big fan of ice cream, I had to do a little research, and it turns out, going back even further than that, we've got Angel Brocado in New Orleans. New Orleans going back to 1905, but then in Philadelphia, you have Bassett's going back to 1861.
Oh my.
But the tradition of ice cream actually goes earliest to Damascus, Syria, where it's the style known as Bouza ice cream goes back to 1500 AD. So a couple thousand years back.
All right.
So if you could get to New York City, New Orleans, Philadelphia, but of course, if things should stabilize, maybe we can all check out the ice cream in Syria.
Good point. Well, this particular one that now doesn't seem so old, Eddie's.
Yeah, that's right. But still 100 years, good accomplishment.
Yeah, it's they say it's been around, it's older than sliced bread.
Okay.
Okay, which hit the shelves in 1928, but this one opened in 1925.
That's
so
right.
There you go. There you go.
100 years. Congrats to them.
Yeah,
maybe we could take, as I say, always a class trip out to sample some of the wares over at Eddie's in Forest Hills.
We'll report back once again. All right, so just north of the border, one of the world's longest running offshore fireworks festivals lit up the skies of Vancouver last Friday. The Honda Celebration of Light, now in its 33rd year, is a beloved Canadian summer tradition.
Yeah, dazzling display of lights, music, national pride brought hundreds of thousands together by the bay. Here's a look at how Canadians celebrate summer in spectacular fashion.
broke the calm skies as the Royal Canadian Air Force Snowbirds soared over Vancouver's English Bay. The renowned aerobatics team opened the show with tight formations and dazzling stunts, carving silver arcs across the sky with their CT-114 jets, wowing hundreds of thousands of spectators.
Very incredible. The aerobatics, that was beautiful. That was gorgeous. I think that was wonderful. The choreography was pretty nice.
It was really cool. All synchronized. They were great. They were really good.
As night fell, 400 drones lit up the sky, forming images like the Canadian flag and maple leaves under the theme, Proud to be Canadian. The show also paid tribute to national heroes like Terry Fox, whose Marathon of Hope continues to inspire people across Canada and beyond. Set to stirring classic music, waves of colorful fireworks lit up the night sky, igniting a sense of wonder, joy, and shared celebration.
We're Irish. We came all the way just for this. Way better than anything I've ever seen.
Coming from a small village in Ireland, it's seeing this amount of people in one place, it's unseen. It really lifts your spirits.
And I always find it so interesting how they time it with the music. There was some really, really cool stuff going on here, and it was timed so perfectly.
Once again, united locals and tourists alike in a dazzling display of light, making Vancouver a top summer destination for visitors from around the world. NTD News, Canada.
Gosh, and on that point, apparently it actually generates approximately $265 million a year in tourism for Canada. So pretty good.
Yeah, I hear it's a beautiful place, beautiful part of the continent to go visit Vancouver. The gardens are exceptional, and of course, the outdoors are really some of the best in North America.
Yes. Okay, we'll take our ice cream there. Next, a story about a dog that really knows how to hang 10. A Whippet named Margot took top honors yesterday at the UK's Dog Surf Championships in southwest England.
Yeah, after two hotly contested semi-final heats, Margot triumphed alongside her human, Carl Barnes. Safety, though, was a top priority for the canine contestants. Let's have a look.
We love dogs and we don't want them to be stressed or anything like that. So we've got a vet over there. We've got a dog behaviourist that trains dogs every Sunday at our surf school to be stress-free on the board. So they're all trained and, you know, it's safe.
We keep an eye on the dogs. If they look nervous, if they look stressed, we will automatically say, let's take them away from it. We don't want them to get stressed, upset, or hurt themselves. So, yeah, I'm here to make sure the welfare, mentally, is good.
A few of the dogs also broke world records at the event, including the fastest 50-meter sprint on a paddleboard in a time of 32 seconds.
Matthew Jenkins and his dog Gigi took home that prize along with Ben Gray and his dog named Boo.
The dogs and their owners also broke the official world record for the number of dogs taking part in the race. Fascinating. Well, it does look like a good time, and you know, in some of these races, they're judged not only on their surfing skill, but on their attitude.
That's true. They were talking about the keen importance on the mentals in this event.
Yes.
You don't normally hear that in other professional sports.
That's so true. No dogs were harmed in this event. Okay.
Yeah. You know, it always takes me back to my favorite childhood book. Part of the sort of Cat in the Hat series, but this one was written by P.D. Eastman, and it was called Go Dog Go. And it ends similar to that showing over there with a big dog party.
Oh,
big dogs and little dogs.
I thought you were
white
going to
dogs
say
and black dogs.
Harry McClary. That one. Oh, I'll have to have a look. All right, but we do have something else coming up. We're going to head to Scotland, where President Trump is meeting with the UK Prime Minister. Here we have a look.
Unity, but it brings us even closer together, I think. It's good for both parties. We also discussed, obviously, Gaza. And I think before we get to phase 2, which is, what's going to happen afterwards, we want to get the children fed. We made a contribution a week ago of $60 million, all going into food. We only hope the food goes to the people that need it, because so much, as you know, when you do something there, it gets taken by Hamas or somebody, but it gets taken. and we're prepared to help. We want to help. It's a terrible situation. The whole thing is terrible. It's been bad for many years, but it's great to hear you feel the same way that I do. We have to help on a humanitarian basis before we do anything. We have to get the kids fed. So we've been sending in a lot of food. A lot of the food that's been going there has been sent by the United States. I spoke yesterday with the president of the European Union, Ursula, who was terrific also on the subject, and she's going to play a big role also in helping us. So we have a good group of countries that are going to help with the humanitarian needs, which is food, sanitation, and some other things. It's very difficult to deal with Hamas, as I said. We got a tremendous amount of hostages out, but it would take place in drips and drabs. You'd get 10, you get 5, you get 2, you'd get 10, 12. We get 12 one time. Many of them would come to the White House, and they were so thankful. But I always said, when you get down to the final 10 or 20, you're not going to be able to make a deal with these people because they use them as a shield. And when they give them up, they no longer have a shield. And the people of Israel feel so strongly about the hostages. Some people would take a different view, but they feel so strongly about the hostages. So that's an ongoing process. Hamas has become very difficult to deal with in the last couple of days because they don't want to give up these last 20 because they think as long as we have them, they have protection. But I don't think it can work that way. So I'm speaking to Bibi Netanyahu, and we are coming up with various plans. We're going to say it's a very difficult situation. If they didn't have the hostages, things would go very quickly. But they do, and we know where they have them in some cases, and you don't want to go riding roughshod over that area because that means those hostages will be killed. Now, there are some people that would say, well, that's the price you pay, but we don't like to say that. We don't want to say that. And I don't think the people of Israel want to say that either, which is pretty amazing. A lot of people would say, just get it done and whatever it is. You could also say speed might be better for the hostages. You go through, with speed, you may have a better chance because they're in deep trouble. They're in deep trouble. You saw October 7th, and you saw what the damage and the horror that they committed. People can't forget that. They tend to forget it, but they can't forget. That was one of the most evil things I've ever seen. And you just cannot forget that. So we're very much involved. The Prime Minister's involved. I'm involved. And I think I can speak. We just signed a very big trade deal, the biggest of them all yesterday, right? And the European Union is very much involved in wanting to help with the Palestinians in terms of getting people fed. But the area of Gaza, another way of defining it is the area of Gaza. It's a very troubled place, and it has been for many, many years. It has been for many decades. So it's not like this just happened. This has been going on for a long period of time. So that's it. Our hearts are in the right place. We have some good news because the recent war that you just saw, they just announced, I see, the newest of the 5, now this would be 6 that we've stopped. I've stopped 6 wars in the last, I'm averaging about a war a month, but the last 3 were very close together. India and Pakistan and a lot of them. Congo was just done, Rwanda was just done. But you probably know, I won't go into it very much because I don't know the final numbers yet. I don't know. Numerous people were killed, and I was dealing with 2 countries that we get along with very well, very different countries from certain standpoints. They've been fighting for 500 years, intermittently, and we solved that war. You probably saw it just came out over the wire, so we solved it through trade. I said, I don't want to trade with anybody that's killing each other, so we just got that one solved. And I'm going to call the 2 prime ministers who I got along with very, very well and speak to them right after this meeting and congratulate them. But it was an honor to be involved, and that was going to be a very nasty war. Those wars have been very, very nasty. So we've done a lot of good work. We've had great support from the Prime Minister anytime we needed help, anytime we needed any form of support. You've been there. We appreciate it very much. And we're going to continue onward. We do have to take care of the humanitarian needs at what they used to call the Gaza Strip. You don't hear that line too much anymore. You don't hear the Gaza Strip, but it is the Gaza Strip, and it's amazing that it's not being handled a little bit differently. We're going to set up food centers, and we're going to do it in conjunction with some very good people, and we're going to supply funds. And we just took in trillions of dollars. We got a lot of money, and we're going to spend a little money on some food. And other nations are joining us. I know your nation's joining us, and we have all of the European nations joining us, and others also have called, and they want to be helpful. So we're going to set up food centers and where the people can walk in and no boundaries. We're not going to have fences, and they can't. They see the food from 30 you would say yards away, and they see the food. It's all there, but nobody's at it because they have fences set up that nobody can even get it. It's crazy what's going on over there. So we're going to work very closely together with your country, a great country. We also discussed inside that we are, there's a whole new thing happening with regard to energy from nuclear. Yeah. And the Prime Minister's looking at that very strongly. And I know you have Rolls-Royce nuclear plants. That sounds pretty good, right? I love that. What a great brand that is. But you're also doing the Rolls-Royce or the nuclear plants, the smaller plants. We're doing smaller and bigger, but the small is interesting. They do a small plant, very easy, very safe, and as they need more, they hook up another plant, and they have a series of plants instead of, doing the $20 billion plant. That gets tough for a lot of people to do. So we're just studying that, and it sounds like you're very far progressed, but that's a great thing you're doing on nuclear. We opened up nuclear about 2 months ago, and it's now safe and very inexpensive.
No, we see civil nuclear as a big part of the future as we go to sustainable, independent energy. And I think that between the two of us, we can work very much more closely on this. And we've agreed that that's our ambition, that's our aspiration. And this is going to be a big part of the future when it comes to energy. And you can see in the last few years, energy has been weaponized. Prices have dictated both families and businesses across the United Kingdom, and therefore taking control of energy is a huge prize. So the more we can work together on this, the better. And small modular reactors are a very big part of the future here, and we've got great companies like Rolls-Royce involved in that. So I'm very much looking forward to working together with you, Mr. President.
We'll do that. We'll do that. We're going up to your oil capital in a little while. We're going up to Aberdeen. That's called the oil capital of Europe, and that's a great asset that you have up there someday. If they ever change their thinking on that, you have a great and valuable asset. There's a lot of valuable resources underground there, but that's a decision for you to make. But it's a very amazing place, and it is considered the oil capital of Europe. So it's another option that you have. So we are doing really well as a country, and I think that the Prime Minister has been so supportive of us, and so strong and so respected. And I respect him much more today than I did before, because I just met his wife and family. He's got a perfect wife and family, and that's never easy to achieve, right? But
I take no credit for that.
But he's become a friend, and together we got a deal done that has not been able to be done. It was a deal that's very good for both parties.
A really good deal for both of our countries, and very, very well received here in the United Kingdom.
So thank you very much for having us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Any questions?
Mr. President, on Russia, earlier you said that you were going to change the deadline from 50 days.
Yeah.
What is your new deadline?
I'm going to make a new deadline of about 10 or 12 days from today. There's no reason in waiting. There's no reason in waiting. It's 50 days. I want to be generous, but we just don't see any progress being made.
Mr. President, you just talked about setting up food centres in conjunction with other organisations.
Right.
You're talking about the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation or recognised aid agencies? How will this work?
Well, it's going to be working where the United States will be helping with the food. You know, we have a lot of access to food. We got a lot of food ourselves, and we're going to bring it over there. We're also going to make sure that they don't have barriers stopping people. You know, you've seen the areas where they actually have food, and the people are screaming for the food, and they're 35, 40 yards away, and they won't let them because they have lines that are set up. And whether they're set up by Hamas or whoever, but they're very strict lines, so we have to get rid of those lines. But we're going to be getting some good, strong food. We can save a lot of people. I mean, some of those kids that's real starvation stuff. I see it. And you can't fake that. So we're going to be even more involved. We did some airlifts before, some airdrops, and the people are running for it. And the Prime Minister is going to help us. They're very effective with that. You've done that before, and for many, they've done that for 100 years very well. So it's not very hard to do, actually. Yes.
Mr. President, you say you love Scotland. You're the most Scottish president ever in the White House. Is there a better deal to be done for Scotland, for Scottish industry, in the deal that you've done with the Prime Minister? Whisky, for example.
Well, I have great love for Scotland. You know, my mother loved Scotland, and she loved the Queen. I don't know, I might hurt myself by saying that the monarchists are going to like it. Some other people, but she loved the Queen. Whenever the Queen was on television, she wanted to watch. And she would come back religiously. She'd come back to Scotland once a year with my sister Marion, primarily, and sometimes my sister Elizabeth also. But they love this part of the world. And, you know, we're talking about the Isle of Lewis. We're talking about serious Scotland. That's serious Scotland. There was no doubt about it. So, yeah, it gives me a feeling, you know, it's different. You go to another country, you have no relationship to it. You get to like maybe the head of the country or something. But it's different when your mother was born here, Stornoway, right in Stornoway, a beautiful little place.
Is there a better deal to be done for Scotland, for whisky, for example? Because of your love of Scotland, is there a better trade deal to be done for Scottish businesses like whisky?
Well, I assume when we do our trade deal overall, a lot of it comes to Scotland, I hope. Maybe all of it should go to Scotland.
It's a very good deal for the whole United Kingdom. We've already achieved great things under the deal, and we'll achieve even more as we work together.
A lot of it is Scotland. I mean, I do know that, but I mean, we're dealing with the UK. But a lot of it comes to Scotland. And, you know, I was very particular. This is a part of the world I want to see thrive. It's going to thrive.
Mr. President, back to Gaza. You talk about Hamas stealing food and stealing aid. What responsibility does Israel have for limiting aid to the region? And if I could ask a follow-up to the Prime Minister, what pressure can be put on Israel? Is that something that you and the United States could work on together?
Israel has a lot of responsibility. They're hampered by the fact that you still have 20 hostages or so. And the people of Israel are very concerned about the 20 hostages. It's very interesting. You could say they could be more concerned about retribution than the 20 hostages, but they really want the 20 hostages to survive and live to make it. You know, many of the hostages came to my office in the Oval Office, and I was amazed by, I would ask them the question, was there any sign of love? Was there any sign of, when you were a hostage and you have all of these people from Hamas around you, sometimes hundreds, sometimes 10, sometimes 2, but you're a hostage and you're being stored in a pipe. It's not even really, a cave or anything. It's a pipe, a little pipe. And some said they didn't think they were going to make it because they were losing air. There wasn't enough air, and they'd open up the pipe just in time, but they didn't do it on purpose. They just happened to open it. They got lucky. But I said, did they ever wink at you and say, like, don't worry, you're going to be okay? Did they ever give you some extra food, even if it was a piece of bread? Did they ever give you anything during that time? And some were there for 400 or 500 days now, right? It's a long time, a year and a half more than that. And not one person said there was any love from anybody. You know, in other words, you have hundreds of people. And you see it in the movies where somebody's a prisoner and somebody's helping. You even see it with Germany, where people would be let into a house and live in an attic in secret. You know, you see signs of some. I said, did you see anything like, did they wink at you? Did they say, don't worry, you're going to be okay? I ask that question all the time. I've never received one answer that said, yeah, they really wanted to help. No, the hatred is just incredible.
But certainly access to food issue. What more can Israel do? The Prime Minister as well.
Well, I think Israel can do a lot. I will say that Iran, I think, interjected themselves in this last negotiation. Can you imagine the beating they took? We wiped out their nuclear possibilities. They can start again. If they do, we'll wipe it out faster than you can wave your finger at it. We'll have to do that. We will do that gladly, openly and gladly. They've been saying, Iran's been sending out bad signals, I'll tell you. For a country that just got wiped out, they've been sending very bad signals, very nasty signals. And they shouldn't be doing that. They shouldn't be doing that. They were talking about things that they shouldn't be talking about. They were interviewed on a recent show, and the foreign minister is saying things that he shouldn't be talking about, shouldn't be saying. And I think they got involved in this negotiation, telling Hamas and giving Hamas signals and orders, and that's not good. That's not good.
I would say, look, we need to get the hostages out. They've been held for a very, very long time, and we must always start from there. But also recognise the situation on the ground in Gaza is absolutely intolerable, and I think that certainly speaking for the British public and myself, seeing those images of starving children in particular are revolting, and there's a sense of revulsion in the British public at what they're seeing, and they know, and we know, that humanitarian aid needs to get in at speed, at volume. Yes, some can be airdropped, and we're working with others, with the US, with Jordan, on that, but the trucks need to get in, because that's the only way you can get the volume in, and we do thank the President for the work he's done to try to get to a ceasefire, which we desperately need, but also to put aid in to the region. There needs to be much more of that. We need to galvanise other countries in support of getting that aid in. And yes, that does involve putting pressure on Israel, because this is a humanitarian catastrophe now. We also need to look beyond that situation to what then happens in the event of a ceasefire, which is desperately needed. And that's why I'm really pleased that we're having a discussion about what a peace plan would look like after that, the component parts of that. And we have to be really clear at this point that Hamas can play absolutely no part in any future governance in Palestine, and and in Gaza. And it's really important that we're clear about what triggered this, who took the hostages, and calling out Hamas for what they are, which is a terrorist organisation. But I think today the focus has to be on getting that humanitarian aid in at speed.
Will the UK avoid your pharmaceutical tariffs, and will it happen before August the 1st?
Well, we'll be announcing on pharmaceuticals sometime in the very near future. We have a very big plan on pharmaceuticals. We want to bring a lot of the pharmaceuticals back to America, where they should be. If you look at COVID, it sort of taught us a lesson. We were getting our pharmaceuticals from other countries. We almost didn't make any. We used to make them ourselves, and we're going to want to be making a lot of them ourselves, all of them in a sense. But you also have a good pharmaceutical business. We'll be dealing with you on pharmaceuticals also. And we certainly feel a lot better with your country working on pharmaceuticals for America than some of the other countries that were with the relationship we have. You would not use that as a cudgel. You wouldn't be using it as a block. But we're going to be announcing sometime very soon, I think, pharmaceuticals are our whole thing. And the companies know. And drug prices are going to be coming down very substantially in the U.S., very, very substantially. And that'll happen very soon.
Mr. President, we all sense your frustration.
No, go ahead. Hold it.
We can all sense your frustration with Vladimir Putin.
Yeah.
Do you think he's been lying to you about his intentions in Ukraine?
Well, I don't want to use the word lying. All I know is we'd have a good talk. And it seemed on, let's say, 3 occasions, it seemed that we were going to have a ceasefire and maybe peace, and you divide it up and you do whatever you have to do, that obviously to get to the end. and all of a sudden missiles are flying into Kiev and other places. And I say, what's that all about? I spoke to him 3-4 hours ago, and it looked like we were on our way, and then I'd say, forget it, and I'm not going to talk anymore. You know, this has happened on too many occasions, and I don't like it. I don't like it.
Successful social media sites. There are new powers here to censor your site, states mandate.
To censor my site?
To censor your site.
You mean Truth?
Truth
Social?
I mean Truth. Is that okay?
Well, I don't think he's going to censor my site because I say only good things. Will you please uncensor my site?
Yeah, we're not censoring anyone. We've got some measures which are there to protect children, in particular from sites like suicide sites. We've had too many cases in the United Kingdom of young children taking their own lives, and when you look through their social media, they've been accessing sites which talk about suicide and encouraging, if you like, children down that road, and that is what we want to stop. Nothing about censoring free speech. But this country is a proud free speech in this country has been for a very long time. We're very, very proud of it. We will protect it forever. But at the same time, I personally feel very strongly that we should protect our young teenagers, and that's what it usually is, from things like suicide sites. I don't see that as a free speech issue. I see that as a child protection issue.
We actually passed a bill in Congress, headed up by my wife, actually, which was to pull bad stuff out having to do with children, because it is a problem. But I cannot imagine him censoring Truth Social. That's more of a very political, and you know, it's been a very big success.
Not going to happen.
And I only say good things about him and his country, so they to me, you're making a mistake. I'm going to give my ambassador the job, make sure it's not censored. I had not heard that.
You're a big investor in this area, Mr. President.
Say it?
You're a big investor in this area.
To put it mildly. Like this ballroom that we built from scratch.
Do you worry, though, about the risk of increased taxes here? Will that stop you investing? And do you have a message last night on the soccer to the English Lionesses who won the European trophy?
So I think that I have a theory that low taxes bring growth. We just passed a big tax cut bill, the biggest bill in the history of our country, actually. And one big, beautiful bill. I used to call it the Great One Big Beautiful. We took the word great out. But it's actually called the One Big Beautiful Bill. It's essentially a very large tax cut bill for everybody. And our country's pretty soon, I think I can say it right now, our country has never done better. We had a country that was dead. It was dead 6 months ago, a year ago. Leaders from NATO, we had a very successful meeting at NATO. Your prime minister was there. It was an unbelievable love fest with all of those countries. And they agreed to go 5% and all the things. Very smart to do. But many of the leaders said, you know, essentially, they said, your country was dead 1 year ago. 1 year ago, we had a dead, and we did. We had a dead country. We had a president who didn't know where the hell he was. We had horrible, horrible people running our country. I think they were sick people, actually, sick. You talk about censorship. Those are big. That's all they did was censor, and they didn't know what to do. And they had high taxes. They wanted more tax, total censorship, transgender for everybody, men playing in women's sports, everything bad they wanted, and they still do. That's what they still do. That's why they're down at 15% or something. I saw it today, the lowest that the other part of the Democrats have ever been. But no, I find that when you lower taxes, you get growth. I will say this area, and the Prime Minister hasn't been here very long on all affairs. I think he'll be a tax cutter. But I find that as we cut taxes, we did more business. Yeah. You know, in my first tax bill, we cut taxes from 39% down to 22%. And we ended up at the end of the first year, when it was still a little raw, we ended up taking in much more revenue than we did at 39%. It was pretty amazing. And we're taking in a lot of revenue right now. And this was an additional tax cut. So I find, for whatever it's worth, tax cuts are very good.
We've moved up the deadline. It's now 10 or 12 days.
Is the sanction the same, that you're going to slap a 100% tariff on anybody who does business with Russia?
So what I'm doing is we're going to do secondary sanctions unless we make a deal, and we might make a deal. I don't know. You don't know. It's we've done so many peace deals. This is the one I started out with, and I know President Putin called me. He wanted to know if I could help him with Iran. I said, no, I don't need your help with Iran. I need your help with Russia. And so that's the one deal that continues to linger. And we're losing 5,000. They're losing. I'm not losing. You're not losing. But 5,000 Russian and Ukrainian kids a week are dying. And that's not mentioning the people that are dying also in towns where, he's lobbing missiles into certain towns like Kiev. And he's got to make a deal. It's too many people are dying. It's a really bloody war. And the 5 is now, they're really telling me that number is obsolete. It's like 7.
That's terrible.
So you have 7,000 Russian and Ukrainian soldiers dying every single week for no reason whatsoever. So you would think, based on common sense, you would think he'd want to make a deal. We'll find out.
Publicly, have you had any other Ukrainian channels conversations with the Russians reiterating this?
In what?
Reiterating this new pressure and deadline.
Yeah, we're going to have you're the press. I'm reiterating it to you. I'd say 10 to 12 days. I'll announce it probably tonight or tomorrow. But there's no reason to wait. If you know what the answer is going to be, why wait? And it would be sanctions and maybe tariffs, secondary tariffs. You know what a secondary tariff is. And look, the Russian economy, I don't want to do that to Russia. I love the Russian people. They're great people. I don't want to do that to Russia. But this thing, they're losing a lot of Russians. They've lost 1 million Russians. And that's the, sons. That's the sons and daughters of Russian families. They leave the house. They go, bye, Mom, bye, Dad, and then they get blown away. And Ukrainian, too. Look at Ukraine. It's a disaster what's happened there. But it continues to go on. As you know, we made a deal where the European Union is essentially involved, but it's NATO, and we're supplying weapons to NATO. NATO's now paying because the United States, because of Biden's in for $350 billion, the European nations are in for about $100 billion. Should be the opposite way, by the way, because we have a big ocean in between. Should be the opposite way. But I think that eventually something's going to happen. It should happen fast. So many people are dying. When I settled out with Congo and Rwanda, they lost almost 8 million people. And it just made so much sense. And if I didn't get involved, they wouldn't have done it. They weren't even thinking about settling it. It was just going on forever. And nobody could go into those territories because they'd get killed. They'd get killed. And now they have I hear it's a whole different ballgame. We settled it. This is one that should be settled. Russia, Ukraine. This is one that really should be settled.
Mr. President, Scotland's First Minister has today set out his plans for a second referendum on Scottish independence. Can I get your reaction to that as someone with deep ties to Scotland? Prime Minister, can I also get your thoughts on that? If the SNP do win a majority in next year's election, then they have the right to hold the referendum,
Well, I don't want to get involved in your politics. We got enough politics of our own. I will say that I predicted what was going to happen the last time. You remember, I was opening the first course over at Aberdeen, and I was over here, and at the same time, and they asked me that question. I made a prediction. It was the day before the vote, and I made a correct. I like to be correct, but I made a correct prediction. I don't know. I do say that when they made that deal, somebody said that it was, and I remember this very distinctly. I said, could they do this all the time? There was a little bit of a restriction, like 50 or 75 years before you could take another vote. Because, a country can't go through that too much. I don't know the First Minister, but I've heard great things about him. I've spoken to him. I hear very good things about him, and I'm meeting him today. So maybe I'll have a better opinion then.
And let me answer that straightforwardly, because I believe in a stronger Scotland, in a better United Kingdom. And I think that at a time like this, when it's quite clear that there's uncertainty and volatility around the world. The strength of the United Kingdom together is very important for all four nations, very important for Scotland. And that should be our priority, that should be our focus, not on the politics, which feels like the politics of yesteryear now, at a time like this. And I think that the First Minister should probably focus more on his delivery in Scotland than on his constitutional issues, and we might have a better health service in Scotland. But at a time like this, I think the United Kingdom is always stronger as four nations. I think that's better for all four nations. I think that's how Scotland is stronger. Look at the deal that we've been able to do with the United States, a really important deal that we made just months ago. That is what the United Kingdom can do when we act as a powerful set of four nations together, and there are very many other examples.
Mr. President, you toured the Federal Reserve last week. And
I did.
Set to meet this week. Do you think your visit has inspired a potential rate cut, or how do you see things shaping out this week?
Well, it's interesting. I did tour it. I toured the building. And if you looked at this building, if you came here like 14, 15 years ago, we've had it a long time. It's been an honor to have Turnberry. But I was on much more opulent walls, ceilings, floors. We had to do this. And we did a very great job. I mean, you see how beautiful it is inside. Everything was saved. Everything was preserved. We had ceilings that were in bad shape. They were falling down. You know, it's very old. Wasn't properly maintained. Now it's brand new and beautiful. And we saved everything. If you really think here, you took a look and you were sort of commenting the coloring. Now, this is a brand new building. But if you look outside, it's equally opulent and beautiful. And we didn't do that by spending, hundreds of millions of dollars in surrounding a railing underneath the area that you're painting. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. Brand new, beautiful plywood, very expensive, wrapped around a figurine or a railing to preserve it. But you don't have to do that. You can just wrap a cloth, they call it a blanket, and you don't even have to do that if you're careful when you're doing the ceiling. But I don't know what they did. They'd take down a ceiling and put up a new ceiling, and the new ceiling had no opulence to it. Or they'd fix the ceiling. But I would say that all I need is a good plaster and a can of paint. And, they spent $3.9 billion. And I spent a lot of money, too, but it's I'd say 3.8 billion less, meaning I spent probably $100 million making this place incredible.
And you were saying a lot of that was local trades.
I used local trades.
We were looking at the windows, I think, in the next room.
I had local trades do a lot of this. We have the most opulent windows next door, and I had a choice. Do I take them out? And, they've suffered through 125 years of storms. You have very big storms in this area. When you have a storm, you have a storm.
We do it properly.
And they made it, barely, but they were in bad shape. So I had some local people come up, and we looked at them. You have some great craftsmen here, I think is what you're getting at. And they said, sir, honestly, they've had it. We can copy it and do it much better. And they did. If you take a look at the windows in the various dining rooms, they're magnificent. And they're new, and they're much better looking than what was there. Same exact look, other than a much higher quality. And they're local people. I used a lot of your local people. You have really great local tradesmen here, yes?
But do you foresee a rate cut this week? Do you expect
a rate cut? Yeah, meaning a tax cut?
No. Do you expect the Fed to cut rates this
week? I think he has to. You had 11 cuts, In Europe, they had 11 cuts. In other places, they had 10 or 11 cuts. And we had none, but I'm not going to say anything bad. We're doing so well, even without the rate cut. With the rate cut, it would be better. It affects our housing a little bit. Look, we should be 3 points lower. Each point is $360 billion. Can you imagine that? That's big numbers. Each point, 1 point of cut, is the equivalent of $360 billion in savings. That's big stuff, you know. Those are big numbers in the U.S. Everything's big. He should cut. A smart person would cut. You know, he leaves very soon, so it's like one of those things. But I'll miss him greatly. I'll miss him.
Turnberry, if I may, have you or will you enlist the Prime Minister in your effort to bring the open back to Turnberry? And Prime Minister, you described this beautiful course. Do you agree with the President that it's time to bring the open back to Turnberry?
Well, as you know, that's not a matter directly for me. That's for the sporting authorities. But look, I mean, it is the first time I've been here. It's absolutely magnificent, both inside and out, and looking at the courses itself and the building. It's incredible. But the decision on the Open is not a decision for me, as you'll understand. I should just pick up on the earlier question, because I, for one, will say congratulations to the Lionesses. Last night, our women's football team won the Euros, defended the Euros, I should say,
it's a big story.
Which was a really big success, and the mental and physical resilience that they showed was quite incredible. So
it's a big deal.
There's a lot of bunting out today and tomorrow to celebrate them bringing that cup home.
Did you get the chance to do any planning for the upcoming state visit? And I mean, how is that going to work? Where would you stay? And anything about this?
Well, I'm looking forward to it. It's never been done before, twice. We had our original at Buckingham Palace, and now I guess we're going to Windsor.
Yeah.
And it's never been done. And I'm a big fan of King Charles. I've known him for quite a while. He's a great guy, a great person. He looks really well to me. He looks great. So we look forward to coming over. It's going to be. It was one of the most beautiful evenings I've ever seen. I hate to say it, but nobody does it like you people in terms of the pomp and ceremony.
It's true.
And I look forward to being here with the ambassador. Our ambassador is a very, very successful man who just wanted to do this. And I said, how are you going to be able to do that? And he's so committed to, the relationship between the countries. But he's a very great guy and a very, very successful man. So I very much thank you for doing this.
Thank you for the honors.
Mr. President, will you go to London, or are you worried it's no longer welcome?
About what?
Will you visit London during the state visit?
I will. I'm not a fan of your mayor.
Why not?
I think he's done a terrible job, the mayor of London. But the nasty person. I think he's done it. I think he's
a friend of mine, right?
No, I think he's done a terrible job. But I would certainly visit London, yeah.
Would you recall? So MP Nigel Farage has asked Parliament to be recalled when you're there.
Well, I like Nigel. I mean, Nigel, as you know, is a friend of mine. Nigel's done very well. He's a friend of mine. And Keir's a friend of mine.
Would you recall Parliament so that the President can talk to MPs?
Well, Parliament's in recess at the time, but look, I do want to be clear. This is an unprecedented and very special state visit. This has never been done before, and there'll be many elements of it that have never been seen before. So this is going to be a historic occasion, and we're all very much looking forward to it. And I was very, very pleased to be able to put forward the invitation when we were at the White House earlier this year. So, but this is not just a state visit. They're always incredible occasions, and this is an unprecedented second state visit. So you can imagine just how special that's going to be.
The fact that it's never been done before, and that's because it's non-consecutive, and it's the only reason it could be, made it even more interesting, frankly. So it's going to be great. And being with Charles and Camilla and everybody, I've gotten to know because of 4 years and now 6 months. Gotten to know a lot of the family members. They're great people. They're really great people. And in that sense, I think that the UK is very lucky. You could have people that weren't great people. I don't know if I'd say that, but you could have people that weren't. But
we're very lucky to have our royal family. They're absolutely fantastic.
So we really look forward to that. As far as Parliament, if he wants me to speak in Parliament, I'll do it. Okay? But it doesn't have to be then. It could be some other time. Maybe we should save it for another time. We'll let the one visit speak for itself. But anytime, if I could be helpful, I would certainly do it. Thank you.
Mr. President, with the EU deal, alternatives are you considering to get
Well, there are a couple of alternatives. Some are pretty strong, but the most sensible alternative is talk and negotiation. But I said a long time ago, at a certain point, they're not going to be talking because they're going to lose their shield. The hostages are a shield for them. They did horrible things on October 7th, and the hostages are a shield. And I said, you know, you're going to get down a number, and the number's going to be at a point where you're not going to be able to get them back unless you're going to be very energetic, or to put it a different way, unless you're going to be very ruthless and violent. It's a bad situation to be in, very bad.
Mr. President, with the EU deal last night, you talked during the campaign about President Putin respecting you and helping you have a relationship with him. Do you still feel that way, that he respects you, considering the conversations you've had that have been really nice?
Yeah. I've always gotten along with President Putin. I have had a great relationship with him. And he went through the Russia hugs, too. You know, I mean, it was, we used to talk about it. We used to say, you know, it's too bad we really can't do anything between our country. Because if we did, they'd say, oh, it's, you know, some. Look, I was tough on Putin because I was the one that closed up Nord Stream, and Biden came along and opened it up. I was very tough on Putin in one way, but we got along very well. And I never really thought this would happen. I thought we'd be able to negotiate something, and maybe that'll still happen, but it's very late down the process. So I'm disappointed. And, you know, the funny thing is that their economy isn't that big, and it's having a hard time right now, but it's a relatively small economy. A strong military, but strong economy. And it used to be a strong economy. Now it's not. He's going through a lot. Economically, it's not easy, but it's pretty small, you know, compared to that magnificent size of that land. The land is massive. It's got, I guess, 9 time zones or something. It's a massive piece of land. Russia could be so rich. It could be so rich. It could be thriving like practically no other country. And they're holding that back because we can't. He wants to do trade deals with us. He talks about it all the time. He wanted to. And I envision that a lot of trade with Russia. They have a lot of valuable things. When you talk about rare earth, they have serious rare earth, right? They have just about every form you can have. So, you know, Russia could be so rich right now. Instead, they spend all their money on war. They spend everything on war and killing people, and it doesn't make sense to me. I thought he would want to end this thing quickly. I really felt it was going to end, but every time I think it's going to end, he kills people.
Could a meeting help, and are you considering it? Has been proposed?
I don't know. I'm not, you know, I'm not so interested in talking anymore. He talks. We have such nice conversations, such respectful and nice conversations, and then people die the following night with a missile going into a town and hitting. I mean, recently, I guess, the nursing home, but they hit other things. Whatever they hit, people die. So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
We just had a sense of your differences in political persuasion when Nigel Farage and Sadiq Khan came up in the conversation. I wonder if you have any advice, either of you, for a very divided, polarised world on how you make your relationship.
Not differences, yeah. Not differences. I happen to like both men. I like this man a lot, and I like Nigel. And, you know, I don't know the politics over here. I don't know where they stand. I would say one is slightly liberal, not that liberal, slightly, and the other one is slightly conservative. But they're both good men.
Mr. President,
look, I mean, we like each other, we respect each other, we get on, and we've both got a great love of our countries, of our families, and therefore there's a huge amount that we have already achieved, actually, together, and will achieve as we go forward, leading our respective countries, and of course the relationship between our countries. Donald, we were talking about this morning. That whether it's defence, security, intelligence sharing, it's a close historic relationship. We have fought together in the past. We've always stood together. And I, for one, am very pleased that we've got such a good personal relationship between us. And I think it just shows that even if you come from different political perspectives, different backgrounds, actually there's a huge amount of common ground when it comes to what is in the best interests of our two great countries, and they are two great countries. And I think that because we focus on what's best for our countries, we get along very well, and I'm very pleased that that's the case.
Mr. President.
Well, I do know he wants to cut taxes as much as he can, and you know, politics is pretty simple. It's I assume there's a thing going on between you and Nigel, and it's okay. You know, it's two parties, but generally speaking, the one who cuts taxes the most, the one who gives you the lowest energy prices and the best kind of energy, the one that keeps you out of wars. He's kept you out of wars, but the one that keeps you out of wars. You know, you have a few basics, and you can go back 1,000 years, 1,000,000 years, whoever does these things, but low taxes, keep us safe, keep us out of wars, no crime, stop the crime. And in your case, a big immigration component, you know, because I know that your attitude has become strong on immigration, strong on the toughness of immigration. But I think whoever's going to be, I think I won because we had a lousy president, to be honest with you. We had an incompetent president. But I won because I was very strong on immigration. Now, we had inflation. We had sort of a bad economy with this guy. We had a lot of problems. But I focused on immigration more than I did anything else. And I think I won because of immigration. I think I won because of the border. I had a bad border where millions of people were coming in to our country illegally. And as you know, in last month, 0 people came into our country illegally, 0. So we went from a bad, incompetently run border to the most competently run border that anybody's ever seen.
Prime Minister, the President makes it look easy dealing with illegal migration. You must be envious of his record in such a short period.
Well, I think we've been discussing illegal migration is a huge issue in both of our countries. In the United Kingdom, it is a real cause for concern, and that's why we must bear down on it in all its aspects, upstream, across Europe, where a lot of ours comes through northern France, across the Channel, working with our allies, with our colleagues to break the gangs that are actually running this trade. But equally being very strong that when people have arrived in this country who've got no right to be here, then we should be removing them to their own country. And that's why I'm really pleased that we've been able to focus on this very intensely and get 35,000 people out of the United Kingdom who had no right to be here. Because the message has to be, you can't make your way to the United Kingdom. We won't tolerate our rules being broken. And if you get here, you will be returned to where you came from. And it's really important that we bear down on that.
We're such an attractive place for people to come if they want a better life, because we are.
People coming via the rules are always welcome. Of course, we've welcomed talent and people into this country for centuries, literally. But what the British people will not tolerate is those that break the rules. Those that come through irregular routes, and that's the really important distinction here, and that's what we're bearing down on. And I'm really pleased that we're through pretty well all of the international engagement I've done, all the meetings I've had, the country we've done deals with. We've done deals with countries in the last 12 months that many people thought it was not possible to deal with when it came to immigration, irregular immigration, and we've returned thousands of people who've got no right to be here. And that, I think, is, for the British people, we're a reasonable, tolerant country where people are coming lawfully to contribute to our communities, to our country. Then, of course, they're welcome and have made a great contribution. But what people will not tolerate is those that are breaking the rules. And that is an issue of today, but it's a very British thing. We are people who respect rules. We don't approve of those that break rules.
I can say, though, that I had one of the greatest victories, they say the most consequential in 129 years, so I don't know about that, but it was pretty close. And we won all of the swing states, which never happens. We won the popular vote by millions of votes. We won tremendous electoral college sweep. And I believe I did it more than anything else because of my strong stand on immigration. And I don't think this country is any different in that sense. I think it's a big factor. And it is with a lot of the European countries. Some of the countries have lost their way, and they have tremendous crime because of it. I mean, you had countries with no crime that now have tremendous crime. And you know the countries, and I know the countries. And so I think it's a huge factor in any election, not just this election, but in any election. I think the one that's toughest and most competent on immigration is going to win the election. But then you add low taxes and you add the economy. He did a great thing with the economy because a lot of money is going to come in because of the deal that was made. But I think that immigration is now bigger than ever before.
Mr. President, your Treasury Secretary is meeting with Chinese trade
Right now.
Right now. Have you received an update? Do you expect a deal when these talks are over, especially with the August 1st deadline?
No, they're meeting right now. And, we have a good relationship with China. But China's tough. And like you're tough, we're all tough, yes. But we're going to see what happens. We just concluded our deal with Japan. It was very good for everybody. We're making, great deals. We're making deals that are good for us, but we want them to be good for everybody. It's important. It's sometimes I'll do something that I shouldn't do because it's not very important for our country, but it's very meaningful for the country on the other side. And I'll let them have that point because it's very important for them. So I don't know, but we've made a lot of deals in the last couple of months. And then ultimately, as you might as well know, we're going to because we have, you have 200 countries, more, but people don't know that. You got a lot of countries. And I wouldn't want to sit down with 200 people and have to deal the way he was calling me all the time. We want this, we got to have that. These are tough negotiators. These are, look, they're smart people, they're tough negotiators. They know what they want. And, but we're going to be setting a tariff for essentially the rest of the world. And that's what they're going to pay if they want to do business in the United States. Because you can't sit down and make 200 deals. But we've made the big ones. We just finished Indonesia. They opened up their country. We just finished Japan. They opened up their country. Japan opened up the country. They were totally closed. They opened up to our cars, even to rice. Rice was a big deal. They would never take anybody else's rice. They're taking rice. But they opened up their country. Philippines, we just finished. They opened up their country. They were very closed. I'd love to see China open up their country. So we're dealing with China right now as we speak. Yeah, we're dealing with China right now.
The deal you've got with the UK is better than the one with the European Union. Is that because you think Brexit was a good idea for this country?
No, look, we have a very special relationship with this country. Like, my mother was born here. And not only born here, loved it. She'd come back, I told you, religiously every year. And she'd go up to Stornoway and see her relatives. But she loved the country. Yeah, that probably it always has an impact. Always has an impact. But, Germany has a new leader, and I think he's terrific. I think you like him too.
Yeah,
I think he's terrific. My father was born in Germany. Or his parents said, we're just out. But, so, you have a lot of feeling for this part of the world. I do. I want to see this part of the world do well. Germany, Scotland, the UK. I want this part of the world to do well. All of the nations. You do feel a certain, you have a warm feeling toward a part when your parents are born essentially here. And I think maybe it's slightly different. Maybe it's not. I don't know. But maybe it's slightly different.
Mr. President, you didn't completely rule out a pardon for Ghislaine Maxwell when you landed. Is that something you would ever consider, and why?
Pardon for who?
For Ghislaine Maxwell.
Well, I'm allowed to give her a pardon, but nobody's approached me with it. Nobody's asked me about it. It's in the news about that aspect of it, but right now, it would be inappropriate to talk about it. So,
Mr. President, your opposition to offshore wind is well known. In Scotland,
wind is a disaster.
But in Scotland and across the UK, wind farms.
I know, it's a shame. It's not his fault. I used to tell Alex Salmond.
Have you spoken to the Prime Minister, and will you speak to the first?
Well, all I can do is give my look. Wind is the most expensive form of energy, and it destroys the beauty of your fields and your plains and your waterways. And look out there. There's no windmills, but if you look in another direction, you see windmills. When we go to Aberdeen, you'll see some of the ugliest windmills you've ever seen. They're the height of a 50-story building, and you can take 1,000 times more energy out of a hole in the ground this big. This big. It's called oil and gas. And you have it there, the North Sea, this big, that nobody would even see. You can take 1,000 times more power because the wind is intermittent, it doesn't work, it's extremely expensive. All the windmills are made in China. They used to be Germany and China, now they're mostly in China. They all come out of China. They say that the blades, which are carbon fiber, you can't bury. Oh, okay, you can't bury. What are you going to do, dump them in the ocean someplace? Because they only last a certain period of time. And remember, a windmill has a life of 8 years, especially when they're out in the salty sea and they start to rot and to rust. You're going to have to replace them. It's very hard to replace them. Wind needs massive subsidy. And you are paying in Scotland and in UK and all over the place where they have massive subsidies to have these ugly monsters all over the place. So I've restricted windmills in the United States. Now, a couple we have, you know, the poor stupid people at the beginning, they approved them, so they have their full approvals. But I've restricted windmills in the United States because they also kill all your birds. You know, they wipe out. You know, it's interesting. If you shoot a bald eagle in the United States, they put you in jail for 5 years. And yet windmills knock out hundreds of them. They don't do anything. You explained that. So it's a very expensive energy. It's a very ugly energy. And we won't allow it in the United States.
So we believe in a mix. And obviously oil and gas is going to be with us for a very long time. And that'll be part of the mix. But also wind, solar, increasingly nuclear, which is what we've been discussing this morning, civil nuclear as we go forward. The most important thing for the United Kingdom is that we have control of our energy and we have energy independence and security, because at the moment, whatever the attributes and facilities in the North Sea, that is sold onto the international market. We buy it back off the international market. That was a historic mistake in my view. But what we need is a mix so that we get the energy security that we need for the future, and that's the focus of everything that we're doing. But what we have discussed today is that the energy prices are too high, which is why we recently took measures to reduce the energy prices, particularly for energy-intensive businesses. But in the long run, the only way to reduce your energy prices is to take control of your energy, and that's what we're doing, taking control of our energy.
Our King Charles, who you are a great friend of, is a big fan of eco projects, windmills, as you call them. Is he wrong?
So King Charles is an environmentalist, I will tell you. And I say that in a positive way, not a negative way. And every time I've met with him, he talked about the environment, how important it is. And I'm all for it. I think that's great, you know. King Charles, more than anything else, loves the country. But I got to know him very well. He truly is an environmentalist. He wants clean air, clean water, you know, all of the things that we all want.
Mr. President, you have said that you have not been briefed on the Epstein files, or your name has not appeared in the Epstein files. But doesn't the AG have to tell you if your name is...
Well, I haven't been overly interested in it. You know, it's a hoax that's been built up way beyond proportion. I can say this, those files were run by the worst scum on earth. They were run by Comey, they were run by Garland, they were run by Biden and all of the people that actually ran the government, including the Autopen. Those files were run for 4 years by those people. If they had anything, I assume they would have released it. The whole thing is a hoax. They ran the files. I was running against somebody that ran the files. If they had something, they would have released. Now, they can easily put something in the files that's a phony. Like, as an example, Christopher Steele, a person you know well, happens to be from your country. But Christopher Steele, as an example, wrote a book, a dossier. We call it the fake news dossier. And the whole thing was a fake. The whole thing was a fake. They can put things in the file that are fake. But those files were run by bad, sick people. If they had anything, why didn't they use it when I was killing Joe and then he gave out because he was 25 points down? And then I got somebody new. Nobody even knew anything about it. She was a horrible vice president. She was a border czar, but she never went to the border. She never once called a border patrol agent to find out how we're done. But she was the border czar. Her name was Kamala. Nobody knows her last name. It was Harris, but nobody knew her last name. So I ended up, how would you like to end up in a race where you're killing somebody, you're beating him, and then they say, all right, we'll take him out. He's not working. Let's put somebody else. And then she had a 6-week honeymoon. It was amazing. They predicted she would have a 6-week honeymoon, and she did. And then she got slaughtered. But think of it. Those files were run by these people. They were run by my enemy. If there was anything in there, they would have used them for the election. Yeah.
Do you think that drawing, I think I heard you say something the other day, that the drawing that was the subject of the Wall Street Journal report.
I don't do drawings. I'm not a drawing person.
Do you think it was fraudulent?
I don't do drawings. Sometimes people say, would you draw a building? And I'll draw 4 lines and a little roof, for a charity stuff. But I'm not a drawing person. I don't do drawings of women, that I can tell you. They say there's a drawing of a woman, and I don't do drawings of women. And also, Epstein was always a very controversial guy. I was at a very high position, pretty much all my life. In all fairness, I've been doing this for a long time. I had the top show on television. I had the #1 bestsellers. I had everything, right? And I was a very successful business guy. He was a very controversial. Who would do a controversial drawing? Now, with that being said, they say there were many letters done by many people, and in many big people, big successful people. But I just don't. When you talk about files, I just keep going back, and other people too. Even the enemy says this thing is not correct, because if we had it, we would have used it on the guy. It's a bad issue. They say it's a good issue for Trump. Do you know that my poll numbers are up 4.5 points since this ridiculous Epstein stuff? My poll numbers have gone up 4.5 points because people don't buy it. Okay, people don't buy it. And he's gone, and we want to focus on trade deals. I want to focus on the deal we just made with the European Union, which is the biggest trade deal in history. It's the biggest deal, I think, in history, not just trade deal. So if they would have had something, they would have used it.
And people keep writing stories about the time you threw him out of Mar-a-Lago. Can you settle that? What was it about? What caused the breach with him?
That's such old history. Very easy to explain, but I don't want to waste your time by explaining it. But for years, I wouldn't talk to Jeffrey Epstein. I wouldn't talk because he did something that was inappropriate. He hired help. And I said, don't ever do that again. He stole people that worked for me. I said, don't ever do that again. He did it again. And I threw him out of the place, persona non grata. I threw him out. And that was it. I'm glad I did, if you want to know the truth. And by the way, I never went to the island, and Bill Clinton went there supposedly 28 times. I never went to the island, but Larry Summers, I hear, went there. He was the head of Harvard. And many other people that are very big people. Nobody ever talks about them. I never had the privilege of going to his island. And I did turn it down, but a lot of people in Palm Beach were invited to his island. In one of my very good moments, I turned it down. I didn't want to go to his island. Yeah.
Mr. President, on Gaza, next time you speak to Netanyahu, what will you ask him to do?
Say it what, louder?
Next time you speak to Netanyahu, what will you ask him to do?
Well, I'm going to say, look, we're giving money and we're giving food, but we're over here and we're over in the United States, and I think I can speak for the Prime Minister. We're giving money and things. He's got to sort of like